You lock yourself inside a wooden boat with every kind of animal you can name, plus a few you can't. And then you just stay there for over a year. No windows to speak of, no lavender candles, and absolutely no such thing as air circulation. Now your nose gets introduced to wet fur, hot breath, sour feed, and a non-stop layer cake of poop. Congratulations, you've invented a smell that doesn't leave your clothes or your soul. Hey guys, tonight we begin with Noah and the Ark. We're going to step into the year-long floating nightmare where the walls sweat, the floor squishes, and the animal noises never stop. We're going to feel the weight of the work, the weirdness of the world outside, and the sheer audacity of being told to build a rescue boat for life itself. So before you get comfortable, take a moment, like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the world before the waters. The good news, you're alive. The bad news, so is everyone else, and they're all acting like they got dared to become their worst self. You sit up and immediately regret it because the air smells like smoke, sweat, and something rancid simmering in yesterday's pot. Your bedding is a lumpy nest of fibers that itch like they were invented by an enemy. Something skitters nearby. You don't investigate, you've learned. Outside, the morning is already loud. Not roosters and gentle village life loud. It's more like argument that might turn into a stabbing loud. The street is a stew of mud, old food, animal droppings, and mystery liquid that grabs your sandal and tries to keep it. You step around a puddle and realize too late it's not water. It has a sheen. It has a smell. It has intent. People are awake and moving with that restless energy of a place where kindness is considered suspicious. There's laughter, but it's sharp. There's music, but it's the kind that makes your shoulders tense. Someone shouts an insult across the way, and everyone perks up like it's entertainment. And it is. This is the show. Even the animals feel wrong. A dog slinks past with a torn ear and the kind of stare that says it's seen things. Goats butt each other hard enough to make you wince. Not playful, not normal, just angry. A donkey kicks at nothing, over and over, as if the air itself offended it. You keep walking, trying to mind your business, which is adorable. Two men are dragging something heavy across the ground, leaving a streak. You don't look too closely. People around you don't look either, not because they're delicate, but because they're used to it. Someone bumps your shoulder on purpose. They grin. Their teeth are stained. Their eyes are bright with the casual excitement of cruelty, like they're picking a fight the way you'd pick up a snack. You swallow whatever comment you were about to make. Smart. The smell follows you everywhere. It's layered. Old blood in the dust. Stale beer and sour milk. Unwashed bodies packed into rooms with low ceilings and no mercy. You pass a cooking fire and almost cry in relief, because smoke is somehow the cleanest scent you've had all morning. That's when you hear it, hammering. Not the casual tap-tap of someone fixing a stool. This is rhythmic, angry, determined, like someone is trying to build their way out of a nightmare. The sound pulls you down a side path where the air changes. Not better, just different. Sap, fresh-cut wood, sticky resin that clings to your nose. And there he is, Noah. He's not posed like a hero. He's just a man sweating through his clothes, shoulders hunched, hair stuck to his forehead. His hands are rough and not in a cute "I garden on weekends" way. In a "my skin has become a tool" way. There are piles of timber stacked nearby. Some are straight, some are ugly, all of them heavy. The ground is littered with chips that stab your feet if you step wrong. And of course you step wrong, because you're you, and ancient work sites do not care. Noah yanks a beam into place with a grunt that sounds like it came from his spine. He doesn't have machines. He doesn't have a team of contractors with matching shirts. He has family, stubbornness, and the kind of focus that makes other people uncomfortable. A neighbor wanders by just to gawk. You can tell this person came for the vibes of mockery. They lean in, sniff the air, and make a face like Noah is building a giant litter box. Another one calls out something rude. A few laugh. Noah doesn't laugh back. He just keeps hammering. You take a closer look and your brain tries to catch up. The shape is wrong for a house. Too long, too wide, too much. It's a boat, but not the cute kind with paddles and romantic sunsets. This is a floating warehouse, a wooden stomach, and your mind, traitor that it is, immediately jumps to the part nobody wants to imagine. The inside, the ear, the smell, the endless, warm, damp breath of hundreds of animals in a sealed box. You picture straw soaked through, then soaked again. You picture feed turning sour in bins. You picture fur holding onto every odor like it's a beloved memory. You picture a floor that is never fully dry. You picture trying to sleep while a lion coughs, a donkey screams, and something small and frantic scratches inside the wall because, yes, of course there are extra stowaways. There are always extra stowaways. Even now you can see birds circling overhead like they're already RSVP'd. A gust of wind brings you the scent of pitch. Thick, tar-like, stubborn. It smells like a workshop, a wound, and a warning all at once. Noah's going to smear it over the wood until it seals, and part of you wants to applaud. Another part of you wants to ask how anyone is supposed to breathe in there. And then you remember the air out here, because behind you, the world keeps being itself. A shout, a crack, the sound of someone hitting someone else and no one intervening. The little hairs on your arms rise, not from cold, but from the feeling that the ground is sick. You glance back toward the street and see a group gathered in a loose circle. People are smiling. Someone tosses something into the middle. An animal lunges. Another animal lunges back. It isn't hunting. It's provoked. Someone cheers like they're at a sporting event. Someone throws their head back laughing, and you realize they're laughing at pain the way people laugh at jokes. You feel your stomach turn, slow and heavy. Noah's hammering continues, steady as a heartbeat. Each strike is stubborn, like he's refusing to let the noise of the world tell him what's normal. His sons move around him, hauling, lifting, carrying water, wiping sweat with forearms that are already bruised. His wife passes by with food, and it's simple. Bread, something dried, the kind of meal you eat because you must, not because you enjoy. She looks at the rising timbers, then at Noah, and her expression is complicated in a way you understand immediately. Love, worry, exhaustion. The resigned patience of someone married to a man doing something impossible in front of everyone. Another laugh erupts from the road, and it's not even aimed at Noah this time. It's just the sound the world makes when it's rotting. You stand there between the two scents, the foul breath of the streets and the raw wood and sticky pitch of this half-built refuge. And you realize what's coming isn't just rain. It's relief and terror tied together. Because what else do you do when violence has soaked into everything? When even the animals can't relax? When the air tastes like anger? Noah drives another nail, and the sharp ring of metal on wood cuts through the chaos. It's clean, it's clear, it's almost soothing. Then a goat nearby lowers its head and rams another goat so hard you hear the impact. The goats don't even separate with dignity. They just keep grinding, stubborn and furious, like they're determined to turn existence into a fight. You look back at the skeleton of the ark and try to imagine it finished. 3 levels, 1 door, a single high opening, a giant wooden box that will soon contain the entire future. And somehow, the worst thought still isn't the storm. It's the smell. The wind shifts, and the pitch smell thins out. It doesn't get replaced by anything better. It just gives the rest of the world room to climb back into your nose. And you can feel why the waters are coming, because you can taste what this place has turned into. So you leave Noah's worksite behind, and your feet take you back toward the sound of people. Bad choice. Understandable, but bad. The street swallows you like a mouth. The mud is warm in a way mud should never be. It clings to your sandal, strings out, and snaps back like it has opinions. You step around something soft and realize it's a strip of animal hide, half tanned, half rotting. The air tastes like old smoke and sour beer, and your tongue immediately files a complaint. A child darts past you, barefoot, fast, and not laughing, not playing, running the way you run when you know exactly where the danger is. Behind him, 2 older boys jog with sticks in their hands, smiling like they've been given permission to be awful. No one stops them. No one even looks up, because cruelty is background noise now, like insects. You pass a doorway where a woman is arguing with a man. His voice is low and lazy, like he's bored by her fear. He grabs her wrist, hard enough that you see her fingers go white, and he yanks her inside. The door slams. A neighbor hears it, pauses, and goes right back to grinding grain. You learn it fast. You can scream, but you're mostly just performing for the dust. A donkey brays nearby, sharp and panicked, and you think finally, something normal, something farmish. Then you see the donkey is tied too short, and a man is striking it with a reed over and over because the man is irritated by the donkey's existence. The donkey's flank is already welted. The man doesn't even look angry. He looks entertained. You keep walking because your body has decided survival is more important than heroism. The path opens into a market, and the noise hits you full in the chest. Merchants shout over each other. Metal clinks. Animals bleat. Someone is singing badly, and someone else is throwing something at him to make him stop. The ground is a greasy quilt of crushed herbs, spilled oil, old food, and the kind of stains you only get when nobody has invented sanitation. A woman holds up a basket of figs, and the fruit looks gorgeous until you get close enough to see the tiny holes. Insects have been there first. You stop at a stall selling bread. It's stacked in rough rounds, dark and hard, like someone baked disappointment on purpose. The seller smiles at you with 2 missing teeth and a lot of confidence. You reach toward a loaf, and his hand snaps out fast. He doesn't grab you. He grabs your wrist jewelry, or what he assumes you have, and when he finds nothing, his smile collapses into a glare. "You're poor," his face says, offended. "Why are you standing near food?" He turns away like you've personally insulted him. Behind the bread stall, a boy is holding a bowl for alms. His cheeks are hollow. His eyes are too old. A man tosses him a coin from a distance, like he's feeding a stray dog. The coin hits the boy's forehead and drops into the dust. The man laughs with his friends. The boy doesn't even flinch. He just picks it up, wipes it on his shirt, and tucks it away like this is normal, because for him, it is. A shout goes up from deeper in the market, and people lean toward it the way people lean toward a street performance. Your stomach tightens because you can tell this isn't going to be juggling. A crowd is forming around a narrow space between stalls. Two men are in the middle, circling each other with sticks. Not practice sticks, real sticks. Thick, knotted wood that can break bone. Someone tosses a handful of pebbles into the circle, and the stones rattle across the dirt like a starting bell. The men go for each other. One swings, the other blocks. The sound is wet and woody, like someone slapping a soaked rug. The crowd roars, delighted, and you realize with a cold little drop of understanding that this is lunch entertainment. No stage, no referee, no rules, just pain, and whoever stays upright gets to keep their teeth. A woman near you cheers louder than anyone. Her hair is braided tight, her eyes shining. When one man finally cracks the other across the ribs, you hear the breath leave him in a rough cough, and the crowd reacts like they just saw a trick. Somebody throws a coin into the dust at the winner's feet. Another person throws a coin at the loser's head. That one is for fun. You back away, nauseated, and bump into a man built like a wall. Your shoulder hits his hip, and it's like colliding with a boulder that has a pulse. You look up. Up. He's tall, in a way that doesn't feel human. Not just tall guy in the village. This is tall, like a cedar. Tall, like a doorway. His shoulders are broad, and his arms look carved, like someone took a normal man and just added more man. His eyes slide over you, calm and empty. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. People part around him without even thinking, like water around a rock. A smaller man scurries to his side, smiling too hard. He holds out something in both hands, maybe a cup, maybe a token, maybe his dignity. The tall one takes it without looking, and the smaller man nearly bows with relief. You stand very still, because out here size is law. The tall man, giant, hero, thug, whatever name people whisper, moves past you, and the crowd's energy changes. Conversations drop. Laughter thins. Even the stick fight circle gets quieter, as if everyone suddenly remembered someone bigger could do worse. The giant's hair is clean, which is alarming all by itself. He smells faintly of oil and resin, like he actually bathes. That alone makes him feel dangerous. Clean people in dirty places always have power. As he passes, you glimpse his hands. There are scars across the knuckles, old breaks that healed wrong, and the faint brown shadow under the nails that never quite goes away. He's not a ceremonial giant. He's a working one. He disappears down the street, and the market exhales. The stick fight resumes. A vendor shouts again. A baby cries. Life goes right back to being horrible, because terror has a schedule, and the schedule is full. You push through the market, and you start noticing something else, something that prickles at the back of your neck. There are men among the crowd who don't move like the rest. They're not giants. They're something other. They look like men at first glance, handsome in a way that feels unfair. Their hair sits right. Their skin looks smooth. Their posture is effortless. They don't seem to sweat, even though everyone else is glistening like fresh-caught fish. They watch people the way you watch animals in a pen. Curious, detached, amused. One of them stands near a jewelry stall, fingers idly touching hammered gold. A woman is there with him, young, eyes wide, cheeks flushed, like she can't believe she's been noticed. Her father stands behind her, tense and eager, pretending to be cautious while practically vibrating with the desire to trade his child for status. The handsome man smiles at the girl. and it's like the air itself leans in. The girl's breath catches. She sways slightly, as if the smile has weight. Her father laughs too loudly, trying to match the mood. You watch the father gesture, offering, negotiating, selling with his hands. The girl doesn't speak. The handsome man finally nods, slow and satisfied, and the father's shoulders sag with relief. The girl's face looks like someone just handed her a crown, or a noose. She takes the handsome man's arm, and he leads her away through the crowd. People stare, not with concern, but with fascination, like they're watching a parade. Someone near you mutters, half in awe, half in envy. Blessed. You don't know what to do with that word here, in a street where bloodstains don't get cleaned. They pass beneath an archway, and for a second, the light hits the handsome man's face at the wrong angle. His eyes look too bright, too deep, like there's a storm behind them that never touches his skin. You blink, and it's gone. Your mouth has gone dry, and you feel it in your gut. There are things walking around in human shape, and people are lining up to be chosen. You keep moving, because staying near that makes your soul itch. The street narrows into an alley where the buildings lean in, close enough that you feel their heat. The shadows are thick, and the smell is worse here. Old urine, rotting peelings, and a sour, breathy stink from damp straw. You step carefully, but there's no clean place to put your foot. Your sandal slides on something slick, and you catch yourself on the wall. Your palm comes away damp. You do not look at your palm. A sound comes from ahead. Low voices, a giggle, then a sharp slap. You freeze. A group of men are pressed into a corner around someone smaller. You can't see much, just limbs and the flash of teeth. One man says something that makes the others laugh. The smaller figure whimpers, and the whimper turns into a cough. You back away, slow, trying not to draw attention. A rat, bold, fat, shameless, runs across your path and disappears between stones. You keep backing up until you're out in the open again, where at least the violence is public. Public violence has rules. Private violence has moods. You find yourself on a wider road that slopes upward toward a raised area. There's a gate of sorts, and beyond it, bigger houses. Less mud, more stone. Not clean, just curated. Here the air smells like oil and incense layered over the same old rot. Perfume over a corpse. Servants move quickly, eyes down. Their feet are bare, their hands full. You see bruises on wrists, old lash marks, on backs when tunics shift. Nobody speaks unless spoken to, and even then, they speak like they're apologizing for taking up air. A man in fine clothing walks past, and his robe hems drag through the dust like he's never once carried his own water. He pauses to glare at a servant whose load is wobbling. The servant stiffens, terrified, trying to steady it. The fine-robed man doesn't shout. He just lifts his hand and snaps his fingers. A guard appears from nowhere, grabs the servant's ear and twists until the servant drops the load with a yelp. The fine-robed man steps over the spilled goods, disgusted, and keeps walking. The guard releases the ear and shoves the servant to the ground like tossing aside a broken tool. No one intervenes. Not because they agree, but because they like having skin. You continue uphill, because curiosity is a powerful curse. You reach a courtyard where men are lounging on cushions, drinking from cups that look too nice for this world. Meat is laid out on platters. You can smell it, fat, salt, smoke. Your stomach growls, traitorous and loud. One man laughs and tosses a bone to a dog. The dog pounces, but before it can chew, another dog lunges. They collide, snarling, teeth flashing. The men clap and cheer, as if they've trained the dogs for sport. One of the men kicks at them, not to separate, but to make them fight harder. A woman sits nearby, heavily jeweled, her eyes lined dark. She's watching the dogs with mild interest, sipping from her cup like she's at a pleasant afternoon show. A child beside her reaches toward the dogs, fascinated. The woman catches the child's wrist, hard, and says something through clenched teeth. The child pulls back, startled. The woman returns to her drink without looking at him again. A servant drifts past you with a tray of bread. Real bread, softer, pale, scented with something like honey. You watch it go by like a man watching a ship sail away while he's drowning. One of the lounging men notices you staring. He narrows his eyes, amused. "You lost?" he calls. His voice is polite in tone, but it's the politeness of someone deciding what to do with an insect. You shake your head and step away, because in this place, attention is a trap. As you retreat, you catch a glimpse beyond the courtyard into an inner space. There are women there, seated and standing, dressed carefully, hair oiled, skin dusted with powder to hide exhaustion. They're quiet, not peaceful quiet, controlled quiet. A handsome figure stands among them, one of those two perfect men from the market. He's speaking softly, and the women are watching him like the sun is speaking. One woman's face is streaked, as if she's been crying. The handsome one touches her chin, tilting it up, and she goes still. Not relaxed, stilled. You look away because your chest has started to hurt, and you don't want to know what that means. Farther uphill, you hear shouting. Louder, organized, like a crowd at an event. You follow the sound because apparently you woke up today with a decision to suffer. You come to a broad, open space, packed dirt, stones forming a rough boundary. People stand shoulder to shoulder, pressed in, eager. In the center is a pit. Not a deep well, a fighting pit. Men are gathered at the edge, placing bets with quick hands, exchanging tokens, slapping palms. There's a sweaty, excited smell in the air, like too many bodies too close together. A drum beats somewhere, not music, just rhythm. A man in the center raises his arms and shouts, and the crowd answers with a roar. Two figures are dragged into the pit. Not led, dragged. Their hands are tied, their faces bruised. The crowd jeers, hungry for it. A guard cuts the ropes, and the figures stumble free. One is a man with a split lip. The other is younger, thinner, eyes wide with fear. Someone tosses a blade into the dirt between them. A short knife chipped, stained. The crowd surges, shouting. You realize what the rules are. One of them walks out, or neither does. The thin one reaches for the knife first, desperate. The older one grabs his wrist, and they struggle, bodies slick with sweat and dust. The crowd screams as if they're watching the birth of something holy. When the knife finally drives into flesh, you hear it. A muffled sound, like stabbing a soaked sack. The thin one gasps, shocked, like he can't believe the world would do that to him. The older one holds him upright for a second, gripping him as if in an embrace. Then he shoves him away, and the thin one collapses into the dirt. The crowd erupts. Coins change hands. Men laugh. Women smile behind hands. Children stand on tiptoe to see better, eyes shining. You feel your stomach twist hard, and for a moment you think you're going to be sick right here in front of everyone. A man beside you claps you on the shoulder as if you're at a festival. "Good strike," he says, grinning. His breath smells like sour wine and onions. You do not answer. You just step back, trying to vanish. In the pit, the older man lifts his hands, and the crowd chants his name. He looks up, face smeared, breathing hard. He doesn't look proud. He looks relieved, not because he enjoyed it, but because he gets to keep living another day in a world like this. Someone throws him a wreath of leaves like he's a champion. It lands on his head and sticks to his bloody hair. This is what passes for glory now. You push your way out of the crowd, heart hammering, ears ringing with cheers that should have been screams. As you stumble away, you almost collide with another of the giants. This one is even taller than the first, if that's possible. His chest is bare, crisscrossed with scars, and he wears a necklace that looks suspiciously like carved bone. He's holding a club, like it's a walking stick. Beside him, two men are practically dancing with nervous laughter, trying to impress him. One offers him a wineskin. The giant sniffs it, drinks, and wipes his mouth with the back of his hand. He watches the pit with mild interest, like it's a children's game. A man approaches him carefully, holding out a small bundle. Wrapped cloth, maybe a gift. The giant takes it and unwraps it with slow fingers. Inside is jewelry, gold, worked carefully. The giant smiles, and it's not friendly. It's the smile of someone who just remembered he likes taking things. He reaches out and hooks the man's belt with one finger, pulling him closer like he weighs nothing. The man's feet slide in the dust. His eyes go wide. The giant says something you can't hear, and the men around him laugh too loudly. The man nods quickly. Yes, yes, yes. And the giant releases him, bored again. The man staggers away, one hand pressed to his stomach, like he's trying to keep his insides from falling out. You stand very still, because your body has decided today is not the day to be noticed by a walking disaster. The giant turns, scanning the crowd. His gaze passes over you, and you feel it like heat. Then his eyes slide away, uninterested, and you realize you have achieved the highest honor of this city, being beneath someone's attention. You make your way downhill, away from the pit, away from the big houses, away from the organized cruelty. Back in the lower streets, it's chaos again. The market has shifted. The bread seller is now arguing with a man holding a knife. A woman is trying to drag a sack of grain, while two boys trail her, snickering, reaching for it. A dog is gnawing on something it shouldn't have. You don't look closely, but you see a strip of cloth stuck between its teeth. A man is yelling at his wife in the open, gripping her arm. She's holding a baby that's crying, red-faced, desperate. The man shakes her, and the baby's head lolls, and your chest goes cold with rage. You step forward without thinking. The man turns his head slowly toward you. His eyes flick down at your hands, empty. He looks you up and down. Then he smiles, and you see his teeth are filed, not naturally sharp, but worked that way, as if someone decided their mouth should look like a threat. He releases the woman and takes one step toward you. Two other men drift closer, drawn by the possibility of entertainment. Your courage evaporates so fast you can practically hear it sizzling off your skin. You step back, palms up, and you force yourself to look harmless, small, boring. The man watches you for a beat, disappointed, and then he laughs and turns away, already done with you. He grabs his wife again as if she's a handle, yanks her forward, and keeps walking. The baby keeps crying. No one stops him. Not because no one cares, because caring is expensive here. Caring costs teeth. Caring costs bones that heal wrong. You move on, sick with the knowledge that you didn't do anything. A familiar feeling slides over you, the sense that the whole world has tilted, and everything decent is rolling downhill. You pass a narrow house where a door is open, and you hear singing inside. At first, it sounds like joy, and you almost smile. Then you hear the words, mocking, cruel, a song about someone's humiliation. The laughter inside is thick and sticky. A woman stumbles out, hair undone, clothing torn. She blinks in the sunlight like she's been in a cave. Two men follow her, laughing, tugging at her sleeves, trying to pull her back in. She jerks away, face tight with panic, and she looks straight at you. For a second, her eyes beg you to do something. And you do the only thing this city has trained you to do. You look away. Your shame tastes like dust. As the sun lowers, the city doesn't soften. It sharpens. Daytime violence is business. Nighttime violence is sport. Fires flare in doorways. Smoke hangs low. People gather in clusters, drinking, arguing, bragging. The air fills with the smell of sweat that has been cooked all day and now has nowhere to go. Somewhere, a flute plays. Somewhere else, someone screams. You walk past a place where men are throwing stones at a chained animal. Maybe a bear, maybe something else, just to make it roar. Each roar makes them laugh harder. The animal's eyes are wild, white-rimmed, and it lunges against the chain until the skin around its neck is raw. It isn't entertainment for the animal. It's entertainment for the people. You realize even the beasts are being taught to hate. You turn a corner and nearly bump into a procession. Torches, drums, voices chanting, not reverent, just loud. A group of men carry something on a litter, someone important, judging by the way people make room. Women line the sides, watching. One of the two handsome men is there, walking with the procession as if he belongs at the center of everything. His face is calm, his eyes bright in the firelight. A young woman steps forward from the crowd, trembling with excitement, holding out flowers. Her hands shake so hard the petals fall. The handsome man looks at her, and she freezes like she's been struck. He lifts her chin with 2 fingers. Her lips part. Her eyes go glassy. He smiles, and the people around her murmur with approval. Someone behind her whispers, "Chosen," like it's the best word anyone can be. The young woman sways, and 2 older women rush forward, supporting her like she's fainted from joy, or like she's being carried away from herself. The procession moves on, and the torches leave streaks of light on your eyes. Your skin feels wrong. The hair on your arms won't lie down. It hits you, standing there in the smoky night, that this world isn't just violent. It's bent, like a beam left too long in water, warped beyond easy repair. The strong take what they want because they can. The beautiful take what they want because they're allowed. The rest of the people learn to clap, to laugh, to survive by pretending it's normal. And somehow, under all of it, there's a feeling you can't name at first. Grief, maybe. Not yours. Something bigger. Like the air itself is tired of carrying screams. You find your way back toward the edge of the settlement, toward the rough paths and scrub and open land. The farther you get from the torchlight, the quieter it becomes. Not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet that means there's nobody nearby to hear you if something happens. Crickets rasp. A distant animal calls out. And it sounds wary, not carefree. You smell wood smoke still, but now it's mixed with the clean bite of sap again. Fresh-cut timber, pitch, work. You crest a small rise and see the silhouette of the ark's frame against the dim sky. It's massive, even half-built, a black shape that doesn't belong on dry ground. A lantern flickers near it. Noah is still there. Of course he is. His hammering has stopped, but you can hear voices, low, tired. The murmur of family sharing food, the scrape of a bowl. Someone coughs. It isn't loud enough to carry far, and maybe that's the point. You stand at a distance and watch, and for the first time all day, you see something that doesn't make your stomach twist. No cheering over blood, No bargaining over bodies. No laughter that tastes like someone else's pain. Just a man and his household, stubbornly being different in a world that punishes different. Behind you, the city continues to boil and shout and celebrate itself. Ahead of you, the ark's ribs rise into the dark like the bones of a new future, and you can feel deep down that the water is going to come for everything. Not because the world made a few mistakes, because the world has made a home out of them. The lantern by the ark frame sputters and pops, throwing nervous light across the half-built ribs. You can smell supper from where you stand, flatbread warming on a stone, lentils cooked down until they're basically a paste, and that sharp little tang of goat milk that never lets you forget what animal it came from. The city behind you keeps roaring like a party that's gone feral. Up here, you get the smaller sounds, a bowl scraping, a tired cough, someone's quiet laugh that doesn't feel like a weapon. Noah sits with his back against a stack of timbers, legs stretched out like they've stopped obeying him. His hands are huge, knuckles swollen, nails split and dark with pitch and dirt. He looks like a man who's been arguing with wood for years, and the wood has been winning on points. His wife passes him a cup, and he drinks like it's medicine. The sons, Shem, Ham, Japheth, are there too, chewing slowly, saving their teeth for emergencies. You watch them for a minute, and it hits you how rare this is. A family eating without flinching at every sudden noise. No one scanning the shadows for a cousin with a knife or a neighbor with bad intentions and free time. Noah notices you because Noah seems to notice everything. Not in a spooky way, in the way a man notices the weather, the grain stores, the mood of a goat, and the direction of trouble. His eyes land on you, then drift away, like you're just another tired shape near his fence line. He doesn't invite you in. He doesn't chase you off. He just keeps being calm in a world that treats calm like a suspicious activity. The night cools fast, and the damp crawls into your clothes. From the city comes a sudden cheer, loud, greedy, followed by a sound that might be a drum, or might be someone getting hit repeatedly with something heavy. Up here, Noah's wife pulls a blanket over the youngest son's shoulders without making a speech about it. She just does it. Mercy, but make it domestic. Eventually, they clean up. The bowl gets rinsed with a splash of water that's too precious for rinsing. The breadcrumbs get brushed into the dirt for whatever brave insects are still trying to live. Noah stands, joints cracking like dry branches. He looks up at the half-built skeleton of the ark. The beams black in the lantern light, and you can see it in his face. This isn't a hobby. This isn't a little woodworking to unwind. This is a man hauling purpose around like a stone on his back. They head toward the house, and you follow at a distance, because curiosity is still driving you like a poorly trained donkey. Noah's home sits close enough to the worksite that he can hear the wood settling at night. It's small, practical, nothing fancy. The door creaks when it opens, because of course it does. Everything creaks. Even the air creaks. Inside it smells like smoke, wool, and old oil. There's a sleeping mat in the corner stuffed with straw and whatever tiny creature straw always comes with. A clay lamp sits on a ledge, and the flame makes the walls look like they're breathing. Noah's wife moves around the space the way you move around a place you've memorized by pain. Don't step there. Don't bump that. Don't trip over the storage jar, because if it breaks you will cry, and then you'll still have to sweep it up. The sons settle down, and for a moment, you get the strange sight of normal. A family laying down to sleep. No shouting, no screaming, no drunken songs about humiliation, just quiet. And in the quiet, you can hear Noah's breathing, slow, measured, like he's practicing being steady, because tomorrow is another day in a world that hates steady. Morning comes the way it always comes here, cold, rude, and far too early. You wake to the sound of animals outside, goats complaining, chickens arguing, something larger snorting like it has a personal grievance. The floor under you is hard-packed dirt, and it's stolen your warmth while you slept. Noah is already up. Of course he is. He's crouched by the doorway, tying his sandals, fingers moving with the slow confidence of a man who has tied sandals approximately 1 million times. His wife is at the small hearth, coaxing fire from last night's embers. Breakfast is bread that could be used as building material and a little salted fish that smells like it died angry. The sons eat without talking much, saving words for when they're needed. Outside, the sky is pale, and the air has that damp bite that makes your nose sting. It smells like wet earth and animal breath and smoke that never truly leaves your hair. Noah steps out and scans the horizon the way other men scan for enemies. He's checking clouds. There aren't any. Just the usual stretched, empty sky, brightening into another dry day. He nods once, like he's confirming what he already knew. Then he heads toward the fields, because righteous doesn't mean you get to skip chores. You walk with him along a path worn into the ground by feet and time. The earth is packed hard, scattered with stones, and dotted with things you do not want to identify too closely. The sun warms the top of your head while your toes are still cold. A neighbor appears up ahead, carrying a bundle of reeds. The man's name is Lamech, not Noah's father, another one because apparently everyone here heard one good name and decided to reuse it until the end of time. Lamech sees Noah and slows down, eyes narrowing with that familiar look people get when they've decided your entertainment. "Well," he calls, voice loud enough to carry. "The boat builder lives." Noah keeps walking. Lamech adjusts his grip on the reeds and smiles wider. "Any fish in it yet?" Noah doesn't answer. He doesn't give the man a reaction to chew on. Lamech tries again, because mockery is a sport and he's warmed up. "Tell me, Noah, when it rains, do you plan to paddle? Or do you plan to float on, what is it? Faith?" His laugh is sharp, and it's meant to draw others. 2 more men drift into view, drawn by the chance to watch someone get poked. Noah stops walking. He turns and faces them, and the moment stretches. His sons aren't with him right now. It's just Noah and a handful of men who smell like stale beer and confidence. Noah's face stays calm, but his eyes are tired in a deep way, like he's been swallowing anger for years, and it's starting to taste like blood. "Morning," Noah says, simple as that. Lamech blinks, thrown off by the lack of fight. Noah turns back and keeps walking. The men stand there a moment, robbed of their little show. One of them spits into the dirt like he's trying to reclaim dignity through saliva. Behind you, their laughter starts up again, forced and irritated. You follow Noah, and you realize this is what walking differently looks like most days. Not glowing, not dramatic, just refusing to be dragged into the mud with everyone else. The work of the day begins. Noah checks fences. He mends a post with twine and a scrap of leather. He lifts a panicked lamb out of a shallow ditch with the patience of a man who understands that fear doesn't need to be punished. His hands are careful, even when they're strong. A goat tries to headbutt his thigh because goats wake up choosing disrespect, and Noah just shifts his weight and keeps working. In the distance, you can hear the city waking, shouts, arguments, The clang of metal, the sharp crack of someone striking something that might be wood or might be a person. Out here, the sounds are smaller. The swish of grass, the creak of rope, the fly buzzing near your ear like it's paying rent. Noah's wife comes down the path with a basket of something green and wilted. She moves quickly, head down, because even out here, a woman alone is a target. She reaches Noah and murmurs, something low. Noah's posture changes instantly. Not fear, not panic, attention. He nods, sets down his tools, and heads toward the settlement with her. You go with them, because you already know today won't be peaceful. As you approach the edge of the community, the smell changes. Less damp earth, more human life. Smoke thickens, old food, waste. The sour tang of too many bodies living too close together. A child runs past you, crying, face streaked with dirt. Behind him, a larger boy follows at a walk, holding a stick like a badge. The larger boy sees Noah and slows. He smirks, because even children have learned the local hobby. Hey, the boy calls. Boatman. Noah doesn't react. The boy jogs closer, emboldened by the lack of immediate consequences. My father says you're building a big box to hide in when the sky falls. His friends giggle behind him, high and mean. Noah's wife tenses beside you. Noah stops and looks down at the boy. Not angry, not soft, just looking, like he's trying to see if there's a person inside the cruelty. The boy swallows and straightens anyway, because pride is loud even in small bodies. Noah reaches into his pouch and pulls out a piece of dried fruit. Dark, sticky, precious. He holds it out. The boy stares at it like it's a trap. His friends go silent. The boy snatches it, because hunger wins, and then he backs away, confused and suspicious, and suddenly less brave. Noah keeps walking. Your throat tightens, because you've watched 100 men respond to mockery with fists. Noah responds with food. It's infuriating. It's beautiful. It's exhausting just to witness. At a narrow lane between houses, you find the problem. An older man is standing over a younger one, shouting. The younger man is on the ground, hands up, face turned away. Beside him is a sack of grain split open, spilling into the dirt like sand through fingers. Chickens are already hopping in, pecking like tiny thieves. The older man's voice is thick with rage, but his eyes are calculating. He's making it loud on purpose. He wants witnesses. He wants pressure. Noah steps in, not fast, but firm. What happened? Noah asks. The older man turns, spotting Noah, and his mouth twists. He stole from me, he snaps. I caught him. He owes me, and he'll pay. The younger man shakes his head, coughing. I didn't. I slipped. The strap broke. The older man lifts his foot and nudges the spilled grain with his toe like he's inspecting damage. Convenient. Noah crouches, picks up the broken strap, and runs it through his fingers. It's old, cracked, ready to fail. Noah looks up at the older man. That strap was dry rotted. The older man's face hardens. So, my grain is on the ground. Noah nods once, then reaches into the spilled grain and scoops a handful. He lets it fall slowly through his fingers. Dirt mixes in. Chicken tracks stamp it. A pebble drops with a soft clink. This is ruined, Noah says, calm. No one benefits from more shouting. The older man's nostrils flare at that word. Benefit. Like he doesn't like anyone talking about outcomes unless he's winning. Noah stands. I'll replace what was lost. Not because he stole, because you're both hungry, and this is foolish. The older man blinks, thrown off. The younger man's eyes widen, because he didn't expect anyone to intervene without charging interest. Noah's wife makes a small sound behind you, half protest, half resignation. You can tell this isn't the first time Noah has done this. It's the kind of generosity that makes spreadsheets cry. The older man recovers and sneers. Ah, the righteous man buys peace. Noah doesn't deny it. He just looks at the older man until the man looks away, suddenly uncomfortable with being seen too clearly. The older man mutters and stomps off, anger not satisfied but contained. The younger man scrambles to gather what grain he can, hands shaking. He whispers thanks, like it hurts to say it out loud. Noah touches his shoulder once, brief, grounding, and then moves on. You walk with them past doorways where eyes watch. People don't like this kind of behavior. It messes up the local economy of cruelty. It makes everyone look at themselves for half a second, and nobody here wants that. As you pass a well, a woman is drawing water with a rope that looks like it's been chewed by time. Her arms tremble with the effort. A man lounges nearby, laughing with another man. They're too clean for their surroundings, and their laughter has that lazy edge that means it can turn sharp whenever they want. One of them sees Noah and calls out, "Noah, come drink with us." Noah keeps walking. The man's smile widens, and you can hear the challenge in his voice. "Or are you too holy for company?" The other man laughs. Maybe he's saving himself for his boat wedding. They howl at that, delighted with themselves. Noah doesn't turn his head. His wife's jaw clenches so hard you can see the muscle jump. She grips her basket tighter, knuckles whitening. You realize she lives inside this too. Not just Noah with his big, impossible obedience. His whole household wears the cost. By midday, the sun is high and merciless. The worksite waits at the edge of everything, half-built and completely wrong for the landscape. The timbers heat under the sun and smell sharper, resinous, like the trees are still protesting. Noah's sons arrive, carrying tools. Ham wipes sweat off his face and mutters, "They were waiting by the path." Shem's expression is controlled, but his eyes are tight. They followed us for a while. Japheth spits to the side angry. One of them threw dung. Noah's wife exhales through her nose, like she's counting to 10,000. Noah nods, absorbing it like he absorbs everything. "Did anyone get hurt?" Ham shakes his head. "Just words." Noah's gaze settles on him. Words can cut. Don't pretend they can't. Ham's mouth twists. He looks away. Noah steps toward the arc frame and runs his hand along a beam, checking the join. Then he looks at his sons. "We work." That's it. That's the speech. You get to work with them. Because once you're here, there's no way to stand around without looking like an idiot. The labor is brutal, even on a day when nothing goes wrong. You haul planks. You wedge supports. You scrape and smooth until your arms shake. The wood throws splinters into your skin like it's personal. Pitch sits in heavy pots nearby, dark and glossy, smelling like tar and sap and the world's worst candle. Flies swarm around it, drunken on the fumes. Noah's sons move with the rhythm of people who've done this for too long. Their hands are calloused, their shoulders permanently sore. They don't complain much, but you can feel it in the way they stretch their necks, in the way they grimace when they lift. Noah works harder than all of them, not to prove something, but because he's carrying the vision like a weight only he can feel. Every so often, someone wanders close. A couple of men from the settlement stand at a distance, shading their eyes, staring up at the rising structure. One calls out, "How's the giant coffin?" Another laughs. "Building a house for fish." Noah doesn't answer. A woman comes by with a child on her hip and stares openly, not mocking, just baffled. Her child points at the beams and squeals. The woman hushes the child, glancing around like she's afraid curiosity itself will get them punished. A group of boys shows up and throws pebbles at the wood. Not hard enough to do damage, just hard enough to feel bold. Japheth starts forward, anger flaring. Noah holds out a hand, stopping him without a word. The boys keep throwing for another minute, waiting for a reaction that never comes. Boredom kills their courage. They drift away, disappointed. You look at Noah and want to ask how he does it, how he keeps swallowing humiliation without choking on it. But you don't ask, because the answer is on his face. He doesn't like it. He endures it. Late afternoon brings a wind off the open land, dry and scratchy. It lifts dust and pushes it into your eyes. It fills your mouth. It coats your sweat so you feel gritty all over, like you've been rolled in flour and regret. Noah calls for a break, because even he understands bodies have limits. They sit in the thin shade of a stack of boards. Noah's wife brings water in a clay jug. It tastes like the jug, which tastes like earth, which tastes like someone once dropped it in something unpleasant and rinsed it the best they could. Still, you drink. Noah's wife sits down with a noise she tries to hide because her back is tired too. She looks at the ark, then at Noah, then away again. You ate? Noah asks her. I ate, she says. It's not tender. It's not harsh. It's just the weary exchange of people who have been carrying a life together while the world tries to shove them sideways. Ham leans back against a timber and stares at the sky. No clouds, he mutters. Japheth laughs once, bitter. There are never clouds. Shem rubs his hands, looking at the pitch pots. How much more of this? Noah doesn't answer immediately. He watches the horizon the way he watched it at dawn. When he finally speaks, his voice is low. As long as it takes. The wind drops, and for a moment the world feels paused. Even the insects quiet down, as if they're listening. And then, one ordinary morning, a voice that wasn't ordinary at all. It doesn't come from the road. It doesn't come from the work site. It comes from everywhere and nowhere, and it lands on Noah like a hand on the shoulder. You don't hear it the way you hear mockery. You feel it. Noah goes still, not startled exactly, not jumping like someone spooked him, more like a man who has been waiting for a knock at the door and finally hears it. His sons notice before they understand. Ham sits up, eyes narrowing. Japheth's mouth opens slightly, then closes. Shem's hand tightens around the rim of his cup. Noah's wife looks at Noah's face, and her expression changes because she's seen him scared before. Not of men, not of hunger, scared in a deeper way. Noah sets his cup down carefully, like he doesn't trust his hands. He stands and steps away from the others, just a few paces, as if giving the moment space. The air feels heavier, like pressure building before a storm nobody's seen. Noah's breathing shifts. Slow in, slow out. His eyes look far away, fixed on something you can't see. His lips move, barely. Then he speaks aloud, voice rough. Yes. His wife rises halfway, alarm flashing. Noah. He lifts a hand, not to silence her but to steady her. His palm trembles. The sons exchange glances. You stand there, dust, stuck to your sweat, heart thumping for reasons you can't explain. The world around the worksite seems too bright, too ordinary, as if offended by the holiness of what's happening. Noah swallows hard. His eyes glisten, and you realize he's not being given a gentle task. He's being given something that will swallow his whole life. He turns back toward his family. His face is pale under the grime, as if all the blood ran inward. We have to build, he says. Japheth stares at him. We are building. Noah shakes his head once, sharp. Not this. He gestures at the frame, then beyond it, as if the idea is bigger than wood. We have to finish, all of it. Ham lets out a short, disbelieving laugh. For what? Noah's jaw tightens. He looks at his sons one by one, like he's choosing how to hurt them with truth. Because everything out there is going to be washed away, he says. Silence hits like a physical thing. A bird calls in the distance, and it sounds wrong, like a laugh in a funeral. Shem's voice is careful. Washed by what? Noah's eyes flick up to the sky, empty, indifferent. By waters. Ham's face twists. From where? Noah's mouth opens, then closes. Because how do you explain something no one has experienced? How do you describe rain to people who have only known dry ground and mist and dew? Noah tries anyway. From above, from below, it will break open. Japheth scoffs, but it's thin, more fear than disbelief. That's not a thing. Noah looks at him exhausted. I know. His wife stands fully now, hands clenched at her sides. She speaks softly, like loud words might crack the world. Noah, what are you saying? Noah turns to her, and there it is. The love, the burden, the apology he can't offer because obedience doesn't come with apologies. I'm saying we were warned, he says. Ham shakes his head, pacing a step, then another. Warned? Of what? The whole world ending? Noah nods once. Shem's face has gone tight, like he's trying to keep his mind from breaking. When? Noah looks down at his hands, black with pitch stains that will never fully wash out. Soon, he says. Not today, not tomorrow, but it's coming. Japheth lets out a humorless breath. And we're supposed to tell them, the people who throw dung at us. Noah's eyes lift. We build. Ham's voice rises. That's it. We just, hammer while everyone laughs. Noah's shoulders sag, and for the first time you see the weight on him plainly. Yes, he says. They'll laugh. They'll curse. They'll call us mad. His wife's eyes shine. And if you're wrong. Noah looks at her, and his voice turns quiet, almost tender. Then we've built a very large wooden embarrassment. A beat passes. It's almost funny. Almost. It's the kind of humor you use when you're standing at the edge of a cliff, and you'd like to pretend it's just a hill. Ham stops pacing. And if you're right, Noah's throat works. Then this is mercy. Shem sits down hard on a timber, like his legs suddenly forgot how to hold him. Japheth stares at the ark frame as if seeing it for the first time, not as a project, but as a lifeboat. Noah's wife closes her eyes. When she opens them, there's resignation there, and something else, fierce loyalty wrapped around fear. How long? She asks. Noah's voice is barely above the wind. As long as it takes. The sons are quiet now, not convinced, not cheerful, but quiet in the way people get when they realize the argument isn't with their father. The argument is with the sky. Noah steps back toward the worksite. He picks up his tool again, because he doesn't know how to do anything else with a message like that. He runs his thumb along the handle, like he's anchoring himself in something solid. He looks at his family. Help me, he says. Not as a command, as a plea. Shem stands first, slow, like he's lifting himself out of deep water. Then Japheth, jaw set. Ham hesitates the longest, eyes flicking toward the distant city where laughter still rises and falls like waves. His face is tight with anger and grief, and the ache of being young in a world that punishes difference. Finally, he steps forward. Noah's wife moves to the pitch pots and checks the lids. practical even in terror, because someone has to keep the pitch from turning into a useless lump. You watch them fall back into motion, and it's absurd. The world has just tilted on its axis, and the response is work, splinters, blisters, measurements, rope, wood that won't cooperate. Noah braces his foot against a beam and drives a peg in with steady strikes. Each hit is a decision. Each hit is a man saying yes again. Down the slope, beyond the scrub, the settlement continues its day. People cheat each other over bread. Men beat animals for sport. Someone wins a fight in a pit and gets a wreath for surviving. Children laugh at cruelty because they've been taught that's what laughter is for. No one looks up at the empty sky and feels afraid. Up here, Noah keeps hammering. The sound carries out over the land, steady, stubborn, almost defiant. A man building a thing no one has ever needed, for a catastrophe no one believes in, with hands that shake only when he stops moving. And as the sun drifts lower, painting the wood warm and the shadows long, you can feel it settling into place. The isolation, the mockery, the years ahead. A family choosing the hard path with no applause, no proof, no guarantee of anything except the work itself. Noah wipes sweat from his brow, leaving a dark streak of pitch across his skin, and leans into the next beam like it's the only solid thing left in the world. And so the work begins. And now it's you doing it. You're in Noah's skin. It will take longer than you can stand. The sun isn't even up yet, and you're already awake, because your body has decided sleep is a luxury for people who aren't building a floating warehouse. The air is cold enough to bite. Your joints pop when you sit up, like your bones are applauding your terrible life choices. You step outside, and the worksite is waiting, hulking and unfinished, a giant wooden question mark on the hillside. The beams you set yesterday have shifted in the night the way wood always does, settling with that quiet, smug creak. Even the lumber is tired. Breakfast is the same as always. Bread with the texture of a roof tile, and whatever was preserved enough to not openly threaten you. You chew because you have to. Your jaw works like a millstone. Your wife watches you eat without saying much. She's learned that mornings are for survival, not speeches. The boys, men really, but they'll always be your boys, move around the yard, gathering tools, hammerstones, wooden mallets, chisels that need sharpening again, ropes coiled like sleeping snakes. Their faces are still puffy with sleep, but their hands already look like they belong to older men. You pick up the adze. It's heavy in the way a promise is heavy. You start walking. The path to the trees is familiar now, worn into your feet and your patience. The ground is damp with dew, and every step kicks up the smell of soil and old manure and last season's rot. Somewhere nearby, a goat coughs like it's personally offended by dawn. You and your sons head out before the village gets fully awake, because you've learned something very useful. Fewer witnesses means fewer comments. People can't mock what they don't see. They'll do it anyway, but at least you won't have to hear it in real time. The trees you're after aren't the polite little saplings you cut for firewood. You need gophers, wood, straight trunks, thick and long, with grain that won't betray you later. You've become a connoisseur of trees, which is not a hobby you asked for. You run your palm along one trunk, feeling the ridges, the resin, the little gritty bites of bark. Sap sticks to your skin immediately. It smells sharp and green, like the tree is trying to convince you it's still alive. This one, you say. Your sons position themselves. One wedges a stone. Another sets a rope. You raise the axe and swing, and the first impact shudders up your arms into your teeth. thunk. The second hit bites deeper. The third one starts the rhythm. Thunk, thunk, thunk. You settle into it because rhythm is mercy. Rhythm is how you keep your mind from running away with you. The tree resists the way a proud thing resists. It groans as the cut widens. Wood chips fly and stick to your sweat. Your hands heat up fast, and the blisters that healed last week start considering a comeback tour. Your shoulders burn. Your sons trade off because they're strong, and because you've learned that even strong men break when they pretend they aren't made of flesh. Ham swings like he's angry at the tree. Japheth swings like he's trying to prove something. Shem swings steady, efficient, like he'd rather not waste energy arguing with a trunk. When it finally starts to tip, everyone backs away. The tree falls with a crack that echoes across the land, a sound so loud it feels like an accusation. It hits the ground and shivers through the earth. There's a moment of silence after, as if the world is waiting to see if you'll regret it. You don't. You can't afford regret. Not now. Stripping branches is its own special misery. You hack off limbs that whip and snap and fling sap. You get showered in needles and dust and tiny insects that immediately panic and crawl into the nearest warm crevice, which is always you. Your shirt sticks to your back. The sun is up now, and the cold is flipped to as heat, not a gentle warmth. A dry, blunt heat that feels like it's pressing you flat. You lash the trunk with rope, tight enough to cut into the wood. Getting it home is the part nobody sings about. You don't have wheels. You have determination, leverage, and a very questionable relationship with physics. You drag it on skids. You roll it over smaller logs. You grunt until your voice sounds like a stranger's. You stop to spit because your mouth tastes like dust and effort. By the time the log reaches the worksite, your arms are trembling. Your sons look like they've been wrestling a beast. You look up at the arc frame and feel the familiar wave of disbelief. It's still not a boat. It's a skeleton. A giant ribcage with no skin, like some enormous animal died here and you decided to rebuild it out of spite. And you can hear the settlement waking behind you. The faint rise of voices, the clang of something metal, the bark of laughter that always carries too far. You wipe your forehead, and the sweat smears the pitch stain already there, turning your face into a map of fatigue. Set it here, you tell them. They drop the log. It lands with a dull thud and sends up a puff of dust that coats your tongue. You don't get a moment to admire your progress. Wood doesn't care about your feelings. It cares about angles. You measure with cord because you don't have a clean little ruler with numbers. You pull the rope taut, mark with charcoal, and check again, because one mistake now means 10 mistakes later. Your sons line up the next beam. The mortise you carved yesterday needs to match the tenon you're about to force into it, because this isn't a cute craft project. This has to hold weight, a lot of it. You fit the joint. It doesn't fit. Of course it doesn't. You take it apart, shave a sliver, test again, shave again, test again. It finally slides in with a reluctant groan. You drive a wooden peg through, hammering until the peg swells and locks. The sound is satisfying in a way that almost scares you. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Each strike is simple. Each strike is a choice you keep making. And now we arrive at the part nobody wants to talk about. Pitch. Pitch is a polite word for sticky doom. You've got pots of it warming near the fire, thick and black, bubbling slowly like it's alive and annoyed. The smell hits you in the back of your throat. Tar, sap, smoke, something sour that makes you think of dead insects. It clings to everything. You dip a brush made from reeds into the pot, and the pitch stretches like it doesn't want to let go. It's glossy and dark, and it drips in slow, deliberate plops. When it lands on wood, it spreads like a stain. When it lands on skin, it becomes part of your identity. You coat the outside first, working it into seams. Inside too, because you were told inside and out, and you've learned that partial obedience isn't obedience. It's just procrastination with excuses. The pitch is hot, enough to sting. It smears across your hands, your wrists, your forearms. It finds every hair and cements it down. By midday, your hands look like you've been dipping them in night. Flies love it. They swarm like they've been invited to a feast. A few land in the pitch and immediately regret every decision they've ever made. They buzz, stuck, legs frantic, then go still. New flies land on top of them, because apparently nobody here believes in learning. You keep brushing. Your wife comes up with more fuel for the pitch fire, carrying it with the resigned posture of someone who didn't plan to smell like tar for the rest of her natural life. She sets the wood down and stands there a moment, looking up at the rising structure. Her eyes track the lines the way a person tracks a storm on the horizon. "One window," she says quietly. You nod. "One door." You nod again. She looks at you. That's it." You hear what she means. Not just the logistics, the vulnerability. One way in, one way out. No clever little escape routes, no just-in-case hatch. Because you're not building a cute pantry, you're building an obedience. "It's what I was told," you say. She presses her lips together and looks away, because she has learned that staring too long at the impossible can make you dizzy. Work continues. Days blend together until you start counting progress by body pain. Today, your left shoulder refuses to lift above your head. Tomorrow, your knee will go. Next week, it'll be your hands, cracked open along the knuckles, pitch sinking into the splits like ink. Your son's changed too. Shem develops a limp after a beam shifts and clips his shin. He walks on it anyway, jaw tight, because pride is cheaper than rest. Ham's hands get so calloused he can pick up hot stones without flinching. Japheth grows quieter, not because he's less angry, but because the anger has settled deep, like a coal you keep alive. The arc grows, plank by plank. The 3 decks are a special kind of madness. You're not just building up, you're building in, dividing space, creating levels strong enough to hold weight that cannot argue with gravity. You lay beams across the width, then cross brace, then add planks, then brace again. Every time you climb up to work on a higher section, the height feels wrong, because this isn't a watchtower, it's a box, a massive floating box. You stand on a beam and look down at the ground, and for a moment your stomach rolls. Not fear of falling, fear of finishing, because finishing means the next thing happens. Someone shows up mid-morning, because of course they do. You hear them before you see them. Footsteps, laughter, the scrape of sandals on dry ground, a little crowd drawn like flies to discomfort. Lamech is with them. Not your father, the other one, the one who treats mockery like a career. He's got 2 friends and the smell of yesterday's drinking clinging to him. "Well," he calls, squinting up at the arc frame. It's getting bigger. You keep working. You don't look down. He steps closer anyway, craning his neck. "How many rooms does it have? Enough for all your feelings?" His friends snort. Ham mutters something under his breath that your wife pretends not to hear. Japheth's grip tightens on his tool. You keep brushing pitch into a seam, slow and careful. Lamech cups his hands around his mouth. "Noah, when it starts raining from the sky, like you say, will you invite us in?" There it is. The little hook. He wants you to say no. so he can pretend you're cruel. He wants you to say yes, so he can laugh harder. He wants any reaction at all. You look down finally, letting him see your face. Your hands drip pitch. Your hair is damp with sweat. Your eyes are tired, but steady. Go home, you say. It's not a shout. It's not a threat. It's the way you tell a dog to leave a carcass alone. Lamech's smile twitches. Ah, the prophet speaks. His friend picks up a pebble and tosses it at the ark. It clicks against wood, harmless, but loud enough to feel disrespectful. Japheth shifts, ready to climb down. You lift one pitch-black hand. Stop. Your sons freeze, because they've learned that your quiet is heavier than yelling. Lamech shrugs dramatically, just admiring your craftsmanship. He turns to his friends and stage whispers loud enough for everyone to hear. It's like watching someone build their own coffin, but bigger. They laugh. They walk away laughing, because laughter is easier than repentance, and nobody likes cardio. You go back to work like they were never there. It's not that it doesn't hurt. It's that the hurt can't be allowed to steer. By late afternoon, your arms are lead. The pitch pot has boiled down and needs more resin. Your wife stirs it with a stick, face pinched as the fumes rise. Breathe through your mouth, she says to Ham, who's coughing. He's here, tries. It doesn't help. It never helps. The pitch smell gets into your tongue. It lives behind your teeth. You could eat honey and still taste tar. When the light starts to fade, you climb down slowly because your legs are jelly. You wash your hands in a basin and watch the black swirl in the water. It doesn't come off. It just spreads. Your wife looks at your hands, then at your face. You'll never get it out. You flex your fingers. The skin cracks. I know, you say. That night, you lie on your mat and your muscles keep working without you. Tiny spasms, a twitch in your shoulder, a cramp in your calf. Your body is trying to process what you did to it today. Outside, the world is loud with its usual cruelty. Somewhere, a fight breaks out, and the shouting rises, peaks, then collapses into laughter. That sound always comes after, like violence is a joke and everyone's in on it. You stare at the ceiling, smoke stains, spider webs, a little lizard watching you like you're the weirdest thing in the room. You close your eyes anyway. Morning comes again, rude and fast. This time, you wake to rain. Not rain, don't let your heart sprint. Just mist, the usual wet breath that rises off the ground at dawn and clings to everything. It beads on your eyelashes. It dampens your clothes. It makes the wood slick. Your mind still jumps though. Your stomach tightens, remembering the word waters. And for a second, you almost hate the mist for existing. You get up. You work. More trees. More hauling. More shaping. More joining. The arc sides rise higher. The ribs start to disappear behind planking. The shape becomes less like a skeleton and more like a wall. You understand now why you were told to make it a box. Curved holes are beautiful, sure. Beautiful also takes time you don't have. A box is crude, blunt, and honest. It says, we are not here for comfort. We are here to not die. The window is a problem you keep circling like a sore tooth. One window, up top. A narrow opening, running along the length near the roofline, because light and air have to get in, but not so much that water gets in. You stand on the upper deck beams and measure, squinting into the sun. Your sons hold the cord steady, while the wind tugs it, trying to ruin your day. Is that enough? Japheth asks. You look at the gap you're planning. It seems laughable. Enough for a world full of animals to breathe. Enough to keep the air from turning into a hot soup of fur and waste and fear. It has to be, you say. You make the opening. You frame it. You pray without making a show of it. Your hands keep moving. The door is worse. One door, in the side. Big enough for people, animals, supplies. Strong enough to shut. Strong enough to hold. You carve hinges from wood and fit them. You test the swing. It catches on a ridge. You shave the ridge down. Test again. The door finally moves smoothly, and it's almost unsettling, like a mouth opening quietly. Your wife stands near it, arms crossed against the wind. She watches you test it again and again, like repetition will make the future less sharp. Once it closes, she says, voice low. It closes. You pause with your hand on the doorframe. The wood is warm from sun. You can't promise her what she wants. You can't promise her everyone will be okay. You can't promise her she won't lose people she knows. You can't promise her that life after will be easier. So you give her what you can. I'll be here, you say. It's small. It's everything. Seasons begin to change, and the work doesn't care. Summer heat turns the ark into a kiln. The wood gets too hot to touch in the afternoon. Pitch becomes runnier, dripping in slow black tears down the sides. You smear it back into seams, sweating so hard the salt stings your eyes. Insects breed in the heat. You work while flies land on your face, and you stop bothering to shoo them because there are always more. Sweat attracts dust. Dust makes mud on your skin. Mud cracks when you move. You look like a man made of earth and stubbornness. Autumn brings wind that cuts through your clothes. Leaves skitter across the worksite. The air smells like dry things dying. Your hands split worse in the cold, because skin can only stretch so far before it gives up. Winter, whatever passes for winter here, makes the mornings brutal. Your breath smokes. Your fingers go numb around the tools. Pitch thickens and refuses to spread unless you heat it longer. You start the pitch fire early and stand near it, hands out, letting warmth sink into your bones. The smoke clings to your hair. By midday you smell like tar and campfire and old sweat. It's not a charming combination. Through it all, people keep coming. Sometimes it's mockery. Sometimes it's curiosity. A man you barely know shows up one day with his little son. The boy stares up at the ark like it's a mountain. What is it? The boy asks, honest. The father's face is tight, like he's embarrassed to be seen near you. Don't stare, he hisses, but the boy keeps staring. You keep working, but you answer anyway. It's an ark. The boy tries the word. Ark. The father clears his throat. How big will it be? You glance at the frame, at the rising walls. Big. The father's eyes flick toward the settlement behind him, toward the places where men gather and laugh. People say you think the world will end. You could lie. You could soften it. You could protect him from the weight of that thought. But you've been carrying this weight too long to pretend it's light. Yes, you say. The father swallows. He grips his son's shoulder too tightly. For a moment, the only sound is wind in dry grass and the distant bark of a dog. Then the father forces a laugh, the kind that sounds like it hurts his throat. Well, may your box keep you warm. He pulls his son away. The boy looks back, over his shoulder until they disappear. You keep working. One day, someone tries sabotage. You find a section where the peg has been loosened, pulled just enough to weaken the joint. You see it right away because you've stared at this wood for so long. You could recognize it in the dark by smell. Ham sees it too, and his face turns red. He wants blood. You can see it in his eyes. His hands clench. Japheth's jaw works, grinding anger like grain. Shem just goes still, like he's bracing for whatever you'll do. You pull the peg out completely, check the hole, check the fit. You replace it, drive it deeper, and add another peg for good measure. You don't even ask who did it. Your wife looks at you sharply. Noah. You keep hammering. They're afraid, you say. She stares, incredulous. Afraid of what? Of wood. You stop and look at her. Afraid of being wrong, you say. That night, she sits by the lamp mending something with quick, angry stitches. You're too calm, she mutters. You rub your hands together, feeling pitch grit crack between your fingers. I'm not calm. She looks up. Then what are you? You search for a word that won't make her flinch. Tired, you say. She nods once, like she accepts that, like she understands it in her bones. The years keep passing. Your sons take wives, because life still happens inside obedience, and loneliness is not holiness. The young women arrive with bundles of cloth and nervous eyes, stepping into a household that already smells like smoke and pitch and controversy. They look at the ark and then at you, like they're marrying into a construction site that might also be a prophecy. Your wife tries to make space for them, which is hard when your house is small and your future is enormous. She shows them where the water jars go, where the grain is kept, how to keep the goats from eating your laundry. She doesn't say, "Welcome to the Apocalypse Project," but it's in the air. The daughters-in-law learn, fast. Don't touch the pitch pots unless you want to smell like tar forever. Don't leave tools where a foot can find them in the dark. Don't go into the settlement alone. Don't answer mockery with mockery, because it only attracts more. They start helping too. One scrapes pitch into cracks with a narrow stick. One twists rope from fibers, fingers bleeding. One cooks for a small army of exhausted men and tries to pretend the jeering from below isn't personal. The ark rises higher. It starts casting a shadow that reaches farther each day, as if the wood itself is claiming territory. At some point, you stop thinking of it as the ark frame and start thinking of it as simply the ark. It becomes a place. It becomes its own weather. Inside, the smell is intense even before animals ever touch it. Fresh-cut wood, sap, pitch, smoke, and the lingering scent of human labor. Sweat soaks into planks, drips dry, leaves, salt stains. You climb into it, and your footsteps sound different, hollow, echoing, as if you're walking inside the rib cage of a giant beast. You start building compartments, pens, stalls, divisions. You don't know what animals are coming, not exactly. You just build spaces that can be closed, opened, cleaned, endured. You fit doors within doors, latches that can be operated from inside, bars that can hold something that might decide it hates being confined. You test each latch by slamming it, because gentle testing is for people who haven't met livestock. The first time you stand on the second deck and look down into the belly of the ark, you feel the claustrophobia crawl up your throat. The space is huge, but enclosed. The walls rise around you. Light filters in from the upper opening, a thin strip like a stingy little promise. One window. You can already imagine the air after weeks of breath and fur and waste. Your stomach flips. You keep building anyway. Your neighbors keep coming anyway. They start treating the ark like a landmark. "Meet me by the idiot box," someone says in the settlement, like it's casual. Children dare each other to run up and touch it, then sprint away shrieking, as if the wood might grab them. Teenagers carve crude marks into a lower plank until you notice and sand it off, jaw clenched. A man stands at the bottom of the slope one afternoon and calls up, "Noah, when you float away, wave at us." Someone else yells, "Bring back fish." You hear it all. Sometimes you flinch anyway. Some evenings, After the last tool is set down and your hands are too numb to grip anything, you sit on a beam and stare out at the settlement lights flickering in the distance. Smoke rises, voices carry, laughter spikes. Your wife sits beside you, and for a while neither of you speaks. Finally she says, "They're not stopping." You know what she means, the violence, the cruelty, the way people treat each other like objects. You swallow and taste pitch that never quite leaves your mouth. "No," you say, "they're not." She leans her head back against the wood. Do you ever wish you didn't know? The question lands heavy. You could lie. You could pretend you're a pure, shining pillar who never doubts. But you're a man with cracked hands and a family you love. You're a man who's been laughed at for years. You're a man who sometimes wakes at night with his heart pounding because the future feels too big for your ribs. Yes, you admit. Your wife exhales slowly. Thank you. You look at her. For what? For being honest, she says, and her voice is rough around the edges. I can't live with a saint. I can live with you. The next day, you wake up sore again. You work again. You're fitting planks along the side when Japheth suddenly goes still. His head tilts, listening. What? You ask? He points down the slope. A crowd is coming. More than usual. Men, women, older, boys. They're moving with that loose, excited energy people get when they think they're about to see something entertaining. Your stomach tightens, because crowds rarely mean kindness. They gather at a distance, staring up at the ark. Someone shouts a crude comment about your wife. Laughter rolls through the group. Ham's face goes dark. He starts down the ladder without thinking. You grab his arm, hard. He jerks, furious. Let me... No, you say. His eyes are wild. They can't. They can, you cut in, voice low. They can say anything. They can do anything. We work. Ham shakes with anger, but he stays. The crowd doesn't come closer. Not today. They just watch, jeering like it's a performance. Someone throws a chunk of dirt. It splatters against the side and slides down, leaving a smear. Your daughter-in-law flinches. Your wife's hands stop moving for a beat. You keep hammering. Thunk, thunk, thunk. The sound becomes a wall. It becomes your refusal. Eventually, the crowd gets bored, because cruelty needs reaction the way fire needs air. They drift away, still laughing, still pointing. When they're gone, Ham spits over the side. I hate them. You don't scold him for it. You understand hate. You just don't let it drive. I know, you say. Shem wipes his forehead with his forearm. How much longer? You look at the ark, at the nearly completed walls, the decks set, the compartments framed. You look at your hands, black-stained and swollen. You look up at the sky, empty and bright, offering no hint of what's coming. Until it's done, you say. Time keeps moving like water over stone. The ark becomes whole. The last planks go on with a finality that makes your chest ache. The roof closes overhead. The window strip remains, a narrow band of light. The door swings and fits the frame. You coat the final seams with pitch. Inside, the smell is suffocating. Fresh pitch, old pitch, heated resin. It's like living inside a giant sealed jar of tar. Your wife steps inside and stands still, looking up, turning slowly. Her face does something complicated. Pride, fear, grief, exhaustion. A whole life's worth of feelings crossing in a second. It's real, she whispers, almost to herself. It's real, you agree. Your sons walk the decks, testing beams with their weight. They stomp, listen for creaks, tighten what needs tightening. Ham runs a hand along a wall, and shakes his head like he can't believe it exists. Japheth stands at the window opening and looks out, eyes narrowed at the horizon. Shem checks latches and compartments one more time, because Shem is the kind of man who trusts nothing until he's tested it twice. Outside, the world continues. The settlement noise drifts up, a shout, a laugh, the distant crack of something breaking. No one throws a parade for you. No one comes up with flowers and apologies. No one says, "You are right to be steady." They're still living. Like tomorrow is guaranteed, you stand at the door and run your fingers over the wood. It's smooth where you sanded it, sticky in places where pitch bled through, warm from sun. This door has become the center of your life without asking permission. Your wife comes to stand beside you. Her shoulder brushes yours, a small point of contact that feels like an anchor. "You did it," she says, voice quiet. You swallow. Your throat feels tight, like emotion is another kind of exhaustion. "We did it," you correct. She nods, eyes shining in the light. Down the slope, someone laughs loudly, and the sound floats up like smoke. You look out over the land, the fields, the paths, the settlement where people move like ants, busy with their little brutal routines. You look back at the ark, a box, a refuge, a warning made of wood and sweat. Your hands rest on the doorframe, pitch still embedded in the lines of your skin, as if even your body has been marked by the work. Behind you, your family moves inside the ark, footsteps echoing on the decks, the sound of life preparing to endure. And in the distance, the world keeps laughing, not knowing it's laughing at the last days it will ever get to waste. Then the animals started coming, and that's when the neighbors stopped laughing. It begins like any other morning where your life is a public joke. You're at the ark before the sun gets cocky, checking the door again, because your hands can't accept finished. The wood is cool and a little damp, like it sweated overnight. The pitch in the seams is firm now, but still shiny in spots. Like the ark refuses to stop looking slightly wet. You run your palm along the door frame and get a faint tacky pull anyway. Of course you do. Behind you, your sons are hauling the last sacks of grain up the ramp. It's not a ramp in the cute, accessible sense. It's a couple of thick boards braced with logs angled like a threat. Every footstep thuds. Every sack scrapes. Your daughters-in-law move around with bundles of cloth, ropes, baskets, clay jars, and the tense focus of people packing for a trip that cannot include forgetting the garlic. Your wife stands near the door with her arms folded. She watches the world below like it's going to do something stupid. It does. At first, it's a bird. You hear the wing beats before you see it, that papery flutter. And then a dark shape crosses the pale sky. It circles once, twice, and lands on the ark roofline like it owns the place. Another bird lands beside it, then another. Your youngest daughter-in-law squints up. "Are those coming here?" You want to say no, because no is a soothing word. It's a soft blanket. But no has been revoked. A sound rises from down the slope. Not laughter, not jeering. A low, confused murmur. You turn, and there they are. Two deer, tall, slender, jumpy, walking up the path toward you as if they've been invited to a wedding. Their ears swivel, their nostrils flare. Their hooves pick their way through the dirt with careful politeness. They should have bolted the moment they caught the smell of humans and pitch. They don't. They just keep coming, step after step, like something inside them has been gently but firmly redirected. Ham stops with a grain sack on his shoulder. The sack slides half an inch as he stares, mouth open, eyes wide. "Father," he says, like he's afraid his voice will spook them. You don't answer yet. Your throat feels tight. The deer reach the base of the ramp and pause. They look up at the arc's side like it's a cliff. For a moment, they hesitate, because even obedient animals still have opinions about steep boards. And then the first deer climbs. It places one hoof, tests the board, shifts weight, climbs again. The second follows, close enough that their flanks brush. They move like they've done this before, like this is a normal errand. Your wife's hand flies to her mouth. You hear a sound behind you, Japheth laughing once, sharp and disbelieving. Not mocking, just stunned. The deer reach the door and stop, waiting. You realize you're the one holding everything up. Your hands move on their own. You unlatch the door and pull it open. The hinges creak softly, and the door swings inward like a mouth opening. The deer step in. They don't panic at the echoing hollow space. They don't skid on the planks. They don't balk at the smell of pitch, wood, and human sweat soaked into corners. They just walk inside like this is where they've always meant to be. Shem exhales, long and shaky. It's starting. Down the slope, the settlement has gone quiet, in a way you've never heard it quiet. People are outside now, standing in loose clusters. Faces tilted up, hands shading eyes, mouths parted. Nobody has a joke ready. A pair of goats appears next, then sheep, then a group of cattle, heavy and slow, trudging forward with the bored patience of animals who have been asked to do inconvenient things since the beginning of time. The noise begins to build. Hooves on dirt, snorts, bleats. The low, wet cough of a cow clearing its throat like it's about to give a speech. The smell arrives with them too. The clean, grassy scent of herbivores, yes. Also, the unmistakable warm funk of living bodies that poop wherever they feel spiritually led. Your wife looks at you, and you can see the thought forming behind her eyes. So much poop. And this is just the opening act. You start organizing immediately, because your brain will panic if your hands aren't busy. You gesture, you direct, you point. This pen for the sheep. Cattle to the left. Keep them moving. Don't let them bunch up. Your sons and their wives become a strange, sweaty, reluctant welcome committee. They wave branches, clack sticks on planks, and make the soothing noises people make to animals when they're pretending to be calm. The animals file in, and they keep filing in. It's not a trickle. It's not a cute parade. It's a steady stream that turns your worksite into the world's strangest market day. 2 donkeys appear, ears high, looking offended. 2 camels come next, long-necked and smug, stepping like they're late to something important. One spits as it climbs the ramp, because apparently that's just how it expresses joy. Ham dodges and wipes his cheek with his sleeve. "Perfect," he mutters, voice dripping with affection. Your daughter-in-law hands him a rag. You're going to need more than that. You hear it before you see it. A sharp yipping and frantic nails on wood. 2 foxes sprint up the ramp, noses twitching, eyes bright. They dart inside, and the smell of them is wild and musky, like they've been sleeping in a compost pile. Right behind them, 2 rabbits hop up. The rabbits pause halfway up the ramp, because rabbits have no respect for schedules. They sit, noses wiggling, like they're considering whether this is worth it. Behind them, the foxes have stopped and turned around, watching. Predator and prey. Just waiting. You stare at that little scene and feel your scalp prickle. Every part of your body expects the snap, the scramble, the squeal. Nothing happens. The foxes blink slowly. The rabbits hop again. Everyone continues. The settlement below makes a collective sound, half gasp, half whisper. Someone finally finds their voice. "What is..." Someone else answers, but is thin and shaky. They're going in. Another voice, louder, trying to force it into humor. Maybe Noah trained them. A laugh sputters. It dies immediately, because more animals are coming. A pair of lions appears at the edge of the path. The air shifts around them, like the whole hillside knows to behave. They walk with that heavy, smooth confidence that makes your spine stiffen. Big heads, thick shoulders, muscles under fur like coiled rope. They should have been stalking. They should have been hunting. They should have been doing literally anything besides walking politely toward a wooden box. They reach the ramp and climb like it's beneath their dignity. As they pass, you catch their smell. Hot fur, old blood, dust baked into their coats. Their breath is meaty. Your heart thuds hard enough to make your ribs ache. Ham grips his stick like he's about to fight the sun. But the lions don't even look at him. They walk inside, 2 by 2. It becomes a rhythm. The world delivers itself to your door in pairs, and you're standing there like a confused innkeeper who didn't mean to open a petting zoo. The birds keep arriving. They settle on beams, on the roof edge, on each other. Their droppings start immediately because birds have no concept of gratitude. One lands on Japheth's shoulder, pecks at his hair, and lifts off again like it was just checking something. He glares after it. I'm not a tree. Your wife looks up at the growing flock. We're going to be scraping that, she says softly. Shem's wife snorts. For a year. The words hang there. A year. You haven't said it out loud like that. Not in a while. Now it's real enough to smell. Inside the ark, the sounds change as the animals fill the compartments. Hooves thudding on planks, the scrape of horns against wood, the soft, constant shifting of bodies. Every now and then, a frightened bellow echoes up through the decks. It vibrates in the beams. The ark answers with creaks of its own, not failing, just speaking. Your sons start closing inner gates as pens fill. Latches click. Ropes pull taut. Wooden bars slide into place. The ark becomes a maze of containment. And the smell. Oh, the smell. At first it's manageable. It's outdoors. Wind moves it along. Then the wind shifts, and suddenly you get a full breath of animal breath, dung, wet fur, and the sour ammonia tang of fear sweat. You cough once, hard. Your eyes water. Your wife hands you a cloth. Put this over your mouth. You do, and discover it helps exactly as much as you feared. Barely. It's like trying to stop a flood with a napkin. The clean animals start arriving in a way that makes you realize you misunderstood the meaning of a lot. It isn't just 2 sheep. It's more sheep, and more, and more. 7 by 7, enough that the ramp feels crowded with wool. Their little hooves clatter, their bodies press close. Their smell is lanolin and grass, and, unfortunately, the back end of a sheep that does not respect personal boundaries. Goats arrive in numbers too, and goats act like goats. They headbutt the boards. They try to climb the side of the ark like it's a rock face. One gets half its body over a rail and bleats triumphantly, as if it just conquered an empire. Japheth grabs it by the haunches and drags it back down. Absolutely not, he tells it, like it understands rules. The goat bleats louder. It goes inside anyway, victorious. The cattle come in more than a pair, heavy and slow, and each one brings the smell of warm hide and fermented grass. Their tongues loll. Their eyes look vaguely, mournful, like they're already tired of this journey. Your daughters-in-law start distributing feed, because animals do not wait politely to be hungry later. They eat now, loudly, with an enthusiasm that turns grain into spray. One cow sneezes and coats a plank with damp green spit. Ham stares at it. That plank had a name, he says. Your wife steps over a puddle that did not exist 5 minutes ago and says, no, it didn't. The crowd below has grown. People are coming from farther out now. You can tell by the way they dress, some with different styles of belts, different jewelry, different swagger. They point at the animals. They point at you. They point at the ark like it's an offense. Some of them shout again, trying to regain control of the mood. Look, Noah's got himself a zoo. Maybe he's starting a circus. Hey Noah, you got room for my mother-in-law? A few people laugh, because old habits die hard. But it doesn't have the same flavor anymore. The laughter is thin. It's forced. It cracks in the middle, because a bear just walked past them. 2 bears, actually. Huge, lumbering fur matted with bits of leaf and burrs. Their claws click on the wood. Their noses work the air, and for a moment you feel a very reasonable desire to climb into the ark and never be perceived again. They go inside. Next come animals you can barely name, strange horned things from farther hills, long-legged creatures that move like wind, sleek cats that watch you with eyes like polished stone. They all walk the same way, not tame, directed. It's like watching a stampede that forgot how to stampede. You catch yourself waiting for chaos, because surely chaos is next. Surely this is the moment a predator lunges, a herbivore panics, the ramp collapses, your life turns into screaming and splinters. But the chaos doesn't come like that. It comes the way chaos always comes, slow, inconvenient. In 1,000 small disasters, a crate of dried figs splits, and figs scatter across the ground. Chickens immediately appear as if summoned by gossip and snack opportunities. They peck frantically. They flap. One flies directly into Shem's face. He staggers back, sputtering. Feathers stick to his beard. His wife pulls the bird off him by its legs like she's yanking a fish out of a net. Not today, she tells it. The chicken makes an offended noise and flaps away, free and unrepentant. Inside, a pair of pigs decides to test your carpentry by ramming their snouts under a pen gate. The gate holds because you built it like your life depended on it, because it does. But the pigs keep pushing, grunting like they're arguing with the concept of doors. Ham goes in with a stick and a bucket of feed. He shakes the bucket. The pigs immediately forget revolution and follow the food. He looks back at you, eyes wide. That's it, he whispers. You nod. That's it. He shakes his head slowly. So they're just like people. Worse, you think. At least people can be shamed. A snake shows up. It slides over the dirt in a smooth, casual line, like it's late for an appointment. Your daughter-in-law sees it and freezes so hard she becomes a statue. The snake lifts its head, tongue flicking. Shem steps between them, slow and careful, and holds out a long hooked stick. The snake pauses, considers, and means nothing by it. It follows the hook, up into a secure compartment you built specifically for creatures that can kill you quietly. When the door closes on the snake, your daughter-in-law exhales and whispers, "I don't like this." Your wife pats her shoulder once. None of us do. The sun climbs higher. The ramp grows slick from hooves, spilled water, and the general moist reality of living things. You throw sand down because you are not about to watch your entire salvation plan become a slip and fall incident. The smell thickens with heat. Outside, it's manure and fur. Inside, it's worse. Inside, it becomes layered. Hot breath, urine soaking into straw, dung piling faster than you can remove it, feed dust mixing with damp. The air turns into a stew. The window strip up top lets in light, but it also lets in the truth. You will be breathing this for a long time. Your wife walks in with a basket of herbs and vinegar-soaked cloths. She hands one to each of you, like she's distributing the last defense against despair. You press it to your face. For a moment, you get something besides animal. For a moment, your brain loosens its grip. Then you step past the goats again, and the goats ruin everything. You find your son's wives at the clean animal pens, eyes wide at the numbers. "How many is this?" Japheth's wife asks, voice tight. You count quickly, because you have to. You count because this isn't random, and you're not allowed to guess. 7 pairs, you say. She looks like she wants to laugh, but it comes out as a weak breath. 7 pairs of everything. Of the clean ones, you answer. Ham's wife stares at the growing lines of sheep and goats. So, extra. Yes, you say. She presses her lips together. Extra poop. Ham snorts despite himself. Then his face sobers again as a hyena walks past, grinning like it knows something you don't. You keep working. Hours pass, and you stop measuring time in light and start measuring it in tasks. Close this pen, tie that rope, move that feed, refill that water, scrape that mess. There is so much scraping already. The ark fills. The lower deck becomes a dense grid of bodies and sound. Every animal has its own vocabulary of complaint, and they all decide to use it at once. A cow bellows, a donkey brays, a goat screams like it's being murdered, even though it's just standing there. A lion coughs, deep and chesty, and the whole deck seems to hush for half a second, out of respect. Up top, birds flutter and shuffle, feathers shedding like snow. Your ears ring. Your clothes are damp with sweat and other people's sweat, and the occasional splash of something that is absolutely not water. Someone bumps your shoulder as they pass, and you realize you're all moving through narrow aisles now, like servants in a crowded kitchen. You built a box. You built corridors. You built your own claustrophobia. Outside, the crowd has shifted from jeering to watching with a kind of hungry unease. They're still trying to be themselves. They're still trying to be the people who laugh at warnings. But it's harder now, because the wolves are walking into the same door as the lambs, because the bear is climbing a ramp like a farm animal, because the birds are gathering like they've been summoned, and because the sky has started to feel wrong, not dark, not stormy, just heavy. The air presses down like a hand on the back of your neck. You notice your wife looking up more often. You notice Shem going still, listening like he's waiting for a sound only he can hear. You notice Ham's usual anger has been replaced by nervous energy. He keeps wiping his hands on his tunic, like cleanliness might save him. Japheth stands at the doorway for a long moment, staring out at the crowd. They stare back. No one says anything. It becomes a silent argument. A man in the front, broad-shouldered, loud-mouthed, one of the ones who used to throw dirt, steps forward. He calls up, voice strained. "Noah." You turn, one hand on the doorframe. He swallows. You can see it even from here. "What are you doing?" he demands. But it lands wrong, because he already knows what you're doing. You don't raise your voice. You don't perform. "Going in," you say. Someone behind him laughs, sharp and brittle. "Going in where?" "Into the box." You glance at the steady line of animals still approaching from the distance. More shapes moving through the trees, down the paths, across the fields. "Into the ark," you answer. The broad-shouldered man's jaw tightens. You think water is coming. You hold his gaze. Yes. A murmur ripples through the crowd. It isn't mockery now. It's discomfort. It's people feeling the first cold lick of fear and trying to cough it away. The man lifts his chin like pride can keep him warm. It hasn't rained. No, you agree. He throws his hands wide, angry now because anger is easier than doubt. Then why would it start now? You look at the animals. You look at the ark. You look at the crowd. You don't have clever words for him. You don't have a speech. You have years of blisters. You have a box full of breath and fur and prophecy. Because it will, you say. The man's face twists. He wants to say something sharp, something that cuts, but he can't find it. He backs up a step, and that, more than the jeers, makes your stomach tighten. Because the laughter is gone. The fear is starting. By late afternoon, the last of the animals arrive in a way that feels like a final stamp. Two creatures you've never seen before, tall and wary, with strange markings on their coats, step onto the ramp and hesitate. They glance at you. You don't know why, but you nod. They go inside. A pair of eagles circles once overhead and lands near the upper opening. They fold their wings, regal and silent, like they're taking their seats. Your wife looks at them and whispers, even them. The predators, the wild ones, the ones people fear because they can't be controlled. They came anyway. The work outside slows. Your son's wives carry the last jars of water inside. They set them down carefully because one cracked jar is a tragedy now. Shem checks the latches again, moving through the ark with a lamp. The light flickers over beams and fur and horns and eyes reflecting gold. Ham shovels straw into corners, spreading it thick. He pauses every time something shifts, because it is deeply unsettling to shovel, bedding beside a sleeping lion. Japheth stands by the door, looking out. Your wife stands beside him now. Her hand rests lightly on his arm, not because he needs it, but because she does. Below, the crowd has thinned a little. Some people drifted away, unsettled, looking over their shoulders too often. Others stayed, stubborn, like witnessing will somehow protect them. A child runs up the slope and stops at the bottom of the ramp, staring. His hair is tangled, his face dirty, his eyes huge. His mother runs after him and grabs his wrist. She yanks him back like the ark might swallow him. The child cries out in protest. The mother looks up at you, face pale. For a heartbeat, your wife leans forward like she might step down, like she might say something, like she might plead. But her mouth stays closed. You feel the moment like a knife pressed flat against your chest. The woman drags her child away, and the child keeps craning back, crying and pointing. The sound follows you into the ark even after the door swings inward part way. Inside, the air is dim and thick. Light slides in through the high window strip and lies across backs and horns and feathers. Dust floats, hair floats. The ark smells like a barn got sealed shut and then dared to get worse. Your family gathers near the door. All of you stand there, staring at the last slice of daylight and the crowd beyond it. Your wife's eyes shine. She doesn't wipe them. Ham looks like he wants to punch the door. Japheth's face is tight, jaw clenched so hard you can hear his teeth grind. Shem is very still, lamp held steady, eyes fixed on the outside world like he's memorizing it. You stand with your hand on the inner latch. The door is open. It could stay open. You could walk out. You could go down the slope and become part of the crowd again. You could let the laughter swallow you up. You could pretend the animals are just a weird coincidence and the box is just a monument to bad ideas. You could do all of that. Your hand stays on the latch. Outside, someone calls up, voice high, trying one last time to turn this back into entertainment. Noah, don't forget to wave when you float. A few people laugh weakly. The laugh fades fast, because the sky just made a sound. Not thunder. Not yet. Something lower. A distant, deep groan like the earth itself shifted in its sleep. The crowd goes quiet again. You feel every hair on your arms lift. You look up toward the thin strip of window and see the light has changed. Not dark, just muted, like the world is being covered. Your wife whispers, almost too soft to hear. It's time. You swallow. Your throat tastes like pitch and vinegar cloth and fear. You pull the door inward. The hinges creak. The outside world narrows to a vertical slice. Faces, sky, the slope, the path where animals walked. You reach for the latch, and you stop, because your hand isn't the only one there. You don't see a hand away. You see your own. There's no arm reaching in, no body filling the doorway. But the air shifts. The space inside the doorframe feels occupied in a way that makes your knees want to fold. The hair on the back of your neck prickles hard. Your wife grips your forearm. Her fingers dig in, real and human and shaking. The door moves, not with your strength, with a firmness that makes the heavy wood feel weightless. It swings shut. The daylight disappears. The last glimpse of the crowd vanishes behind the edge of the door, and it closes with a final, absolute thud that you feel in your teeth. The latch slides into place, not by your hand, by something that does not need your help. For a moment, nobody breathes. Even the animals seem to pause, like the ark itself just held its breath. Ham whispers, voice barely there. It's closed. You stand in the dark beside the sealed door, hand still hovering where the latch is now locked. Your wife's grip loosens, but she doesn't let go. Shem lifts the lamp higher. The flame flickers, and the light crawls over your faces, making you all look haunted and exhausted and very, very small. Japheth swallows. The sound is loud in the quiet. Outside, you can still hear them. The crowd, muffled now through layers of wood and pitch, but still there. Voices rise and fall, uncertain, trying to decide what to do with this new feeling that has no name in their language yet. Somebody laughs again, forcing it. It's a thin sound, like dry sticks snapping. Someone else shouts something you can't make out. A child cries, a man curses, and life outside continues, because of course it does. People keep living right up until they can't. Inside, the ark settles around you. Wood creaks as it adjusts to the weight of hundreds of bodies shifting, breathing, exhaling warm, damp air into a space that will never really air out again. The smell deepens. It becomes its own climate. You turn from the door and step into the belly of what you built. The planks under your feet are solid, but they feel different now. They feel committed. Your lamplight wobbles over the nearest pens. Eyes blink back at you from straw and shadow. A sheep chews slowly, calm as anything. A wolf sits on its haunches, tongue lolling, looking bored. A lion lies with its head on its paws, golden eyes half-lidded, like it's decided to tolerate this arrangement for now. Birds rustle overhead, feathers whispering. Somewhere deeper in the ark, something large shifts and lets out a breath that sounds like a bellows. Your wife exhales. It comes out like a laugh that forgot how to be funny. We're really in here. You nod because your voice won't work. The first day passes inside a dim wooden world. You do what you can do. You feed animals. You check latches. You listen to the outside through the walls, because part of you is still out there, standing on the hillside, being laughed at. Outside, they keep talking. They keep moving. You catch fragments through the wood sometimes. A shout, a burst of laughter, a snatch of argument. Once, you hear someone yell your name again, louder, closer, as if they've come back up the slope. Ham tenses, stepping toward the door like a dog ready to bite. You put a hand on his shoulder. He doesn't shake you off this time. Night comes. Inside, night and day feel similar because the light is always rationed. The window strip lets in a thin grey glow, and the lamp becomes the sun for everything below. You lie down on a mat that smells faintly of pitch and strongly of your own sweat. The floor vibrates with animal movement. A cow lowing in its sleep. A goat shifting and knocking a hoof against a plank. Somewhere, a bird flutters and settles again. Outside, the muffled voices fade as people go home. Someone laughs one last time, distant and careless. Day 2, you wake with your body already tired, because sleep inside a packed wooden box is just resting while surrounded by noise and smells that keep insisting on being noticed. You start shoveling. There's no elegant way to say it. You shovel dung. You scoop urine-soaked straw. You carry it to designated places, trying to keep it contained. You learn immediately that contained is a dream. The smell gets into your hair. It gets into your fingernails. It gets into your food, because you're eating in the same air where everything is breathing and sweating and pooping. Your wife hands you bread. You chew, and for a moment you taste grain. Then a donkey brays, and somehow your bread tastes like donkey. You stop trying to understand it. Outside, you hear less laughter now. More voices in sharp bursts. More movement. Once, you hear running feet and a raised voice that sounds unsettled. Then it fades. Day 3. The animals remain calm in a way that feels unnatural and temporary, like a held breath. Predator and prey exist in the same space and do not touch. You find yourself staring at them too often, waiting for instinct to win. But something else is winning right now. Something heavier. Outside, the air changes. You can't see it through the walls, but you can feel it. The ark's wood seems to drink in dampness. The planks feel cooler. The smell shifts as humidity thickens everything, making it cling. You hear the first real thunder late in the day. A long, rolling sound that makes the animals go still for a heartbeat. Ham looks up, eyes wide. Your wife closes her eyes. No one speaks. Day 4. The crowd doesn't come back to jeer. Not like before. You hear voices sometimes, but they're farther away, more scattered. The settlement sounds different. Less music, less celebratory noise, more doors slamming. You find yourself standing by the sealed door at one point, palm pressed against the wood. It's solid, it's quiet, it's final. You don't ask for it to open. You don't want it to. Your wife comes and stands beside you, shoulder to shoulder in the dimness. You hear them? She whispers. You nod. They're scared, she says. You swallow. Yes. She leans her forehead against the wood for a moment, and you hear her breath hitch. Then she straightens again, because there's straw to change and animals to feed and life to keep alive. Day 5. The ark is a routine now. Feed, water, clean, check latches, soothe the panicked ones when thunder rattles the beams. You find yourself talking to animals you have never spoken to before, saying nonsense in a low voice because your presence is the only thing you can offer. You murmur to a restless horse. You hush a bleating goat that acts like thunder is a personal insult. You look into the eyes of a lion and feel your soul sit down. Outside, the world feels like it's holding its breath too. Day 6. Humidity is everywhere. The air inside is thicker, warmer, stickier. The lamp flame burns differently, sluggish, like it has to chew through the air to exist. Your skin feels damp all the time. Your clothes cling. Your hair sticks to your forehead. Everything smells like animal and human and the faint sharpness of pitch, which never stops trying to reclaim the room. You hear shouting outside at dusk, angry, frantic. A single scream cuts through the wood and stops too fast. Your wife grips your arm. Ham stands up so suddenly his mat shifts. You all listen. Silence follows. Day 7. The air feels charged. Even the animals seem quieter, the way a room goes quiet before a door opens and something important walks in. You move through the ark doing the same tasks, because tasks are how you keep from shaking apart. Your hands work without thinking. Your muscles ache. Your eyes burn from dim light and thick air. And outside is strangely still. No laughter, no jeering. Just a waiting quiet that presses against the walls. You stand near the sealed door again, lamplight trembling in your hand. Your family gathers behind you without speaking, drawn there like the animals were drawn. Somewhere above, through the narrow window strip, the light turns grey. Not evening grey, storm grey. You hear a sound that is not thunder, not wind. A soft tapping begins, irregular at first, like fingers on wood. Tap, 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 tap. Your breath catches. The tapping grows steadier, more frequent, more confident. It becomes a sound you have never heard from the sky before, because the sky has never done this before. It's rain, not mist, not dew. Rain striking the roof planks in countless tiny impacts, turning the ark into a drum. Your wife exhales a shaky breath that might be relief and might be grief. Ham whispers, "It started." The rain strengthens, and the roof answers with louder, heavier percussion. The sound fills the ark, vibrating through beams and pens and bodies. Outside, faintly, muffled through wood and pitch, you hear a voice, a shout that doesn't sound like a joke. It sounds like someone who finally ran out of laughter. The rain keeps falling, steady and insistent, and you stand in the dim belly of your wooden box, listening as the world outside begins to change forever. The rain hits harder, like it got offended you weren't impressed the first time. Tap becomes rattle. Rattle becomes roar. The whole roof turns into 1,000 impatient knuckles, drumming the same message over and over. Too late, too late, too late. Inside, every animal hears it. You hear it in the way the horses shift their weight and snort. You hear it in the low, uneasy moan a cow makes, like it's complaining to the universe's manager. You also hear it outside. At first, it's just voices, muffled through wood and pitch, but still human enough to prick your skin. Shouts bounce off the ark like thrown stones. Someone is yelling your name again, only now it's not a joke. It's a demand. It's a plea. Ham takes one step toward the door, like rage can turn into a key. Your wife catches his sleeve without a word and pulls him back. Not hard, just firm, like she's holding on to the last edge of sanity. The rain keeps talking. It talks all night. Sleep comes in scraps the way it does when your world is a damp box full of predators and prey and your own pounding heart. You doze, you jerk awake, you listen. Every time the thunder rolls, the ark groans in reply. The wood isn't breaking, it's complaining. You wake to the smell of wet. Not fresh rain wet, not romantic wet. Wet like a cellar that hasn't seen sunlight in a decade. Water has found every little ambition your pitch missed, and it's working on it patiently. The air is thicker now, swollen with moisture, and your lamp flame looks tired. Your wife coughs once and mutters, "Of course," because now the ark smells like a barn trapped inside a hot clay pot. The rain continues into day 8, day 9, day 10, and by day 10, you've stopped counting by sunrises. You're counting by feed buckets and dung piles. You set schedules because schedules are the only thing keeping you from sitting down in a corner and turning into a person-shaped piece of driftwood. Morning, water troughs, midday, feed. Afternoon, clean. Night, check latches, soothe panic, and try to sleep while a goat screams like it's auditioning for tragedy. Nobody told the goats about morale. The screaming outside changes too. At first, it spikes whenever the thunder hits. You can practically hear the settlement scrambling, the slap of feet in mud, people shouting over each other, everyone suddenly very interested in roofs. Later, it becomes closer. Closer to the ark. You hear fists on wood, dull thuds swallowed by pitch. You hear a voice crack on a name you recognize, somebody you used to nod at in passing. Open, they shout, and the word hits you like a stone to the ribs. Your sons freeze in the aisle. Your daughters-in-law go rigid, hands on feed sacks, eyes huge in lamplight. You step toward the door without meaning to. Your palm presses the inner plank, where the latch sits, sealed and final, and the wood feels cold and alive. Outside, the knocking gets frantic. There are more voices now, overlapping, climbing over one another. A woman shrieks something you can't make out, and the sound dissolves into sobbing. Your wife's breathing gets rough beside you. You don't look at her, because if you do, you'll fall apart like wet clay. The knocking doesn't last. It can't. Rain like this doesn't allow speeches. By the time the day ends, the voices are fewer. People don't talk much when they're swallowing water. By the time the next day ends, the voices are gone. The silence after that is worse than the screaming, because silence means the world outside stopped having enough breath to argue. On day, somewhere around day 12 maybe, something changes under your feet. It's subtle at first. A long, slow lift, like the ark is inhaling. You brace automatically, knees bending. A few animals stumble. Hooves scrape on planks. A donkey brays in outrage because even the apocalypse is apparently inconvenient. Japheth grabs a post. The ark rises again, slower this time, and you feel it in your stomach like the first drop on a bad cart ride. You didn't build a house. You built a thing that can move. The sound changes once you're floating. Rain on roof is still there, still relentless. But now there's a low slap beneath it. Water against wood. Waves finding your sides, testing the seams with wet hands. The ark rocks. Not dramatically. Not like a heroic sea voyage. Like a heavy tub full of angry animals being shoved around by a giant. Seasickness arrives quickly, and it does not care about your dignity. Ham throws up first. He tries to do it quietly, because he's Ham, and Ham would rather die than admit his body is participating in anything without permission. But you hear it anyway, that wet, choking heave into a corner bucket you thought you had for other things. Japheth follows 2 hours later, gripping the edge of a trough, face green in the lamplight. "I hate everything," he whispers. And you don't argue. Even Shem, steady Shem, swallows hard and sits down with his head between his knees. Your wife doesn't throw up. She just looks at all of you with exhausted disgust, like she's traveling with children. "You cannot," she says, "vomit near the feed." Her voice is flat. Her eyes are dead serious. You nod because she's right, and because you're afraid of her right now. The animals handle the rocking better than you do, because of course they do. The cats just become liquid and settle into corners like they were poured there. The cattle widen their stance and stare into the middle distance, resigning themselves to existence. The birds cling to beams, feathers puffed, blinking like tiny judges. The pigs, unbelievably, seem delighted. They slide around in the damp straw like it's a new sport. The first time you slip in pig filth and catch yourself on a post, you make a sound that isn't a word. Ham looks at you pale. "Father." You wipe your hand on your tunic and realize you've made everything worse. "It's fine," you say, through clenched teeth. Your tunic will never be fine again. Rain keeps falling. 40 days sounds like a number you can hold in your mind, like a neat little punishment. In reality, it's a long, wet eternity where every hour feels identical and your world shrinks to plank walls and animal breath. You learn the ark's noises the way you learn a sick person's breathing. That creak is normal. That groan means a beam is flexing. That sudden sharp crack means something heavy just slammed into a gate because a goat saw a shadow and decided to panic. Your lamp burns through oil faster in the damp air. The flame sputters, sulks and smokes. Soot gathers on beams. It sticks to your fingers. It stains your nails, your clothes, your face. You all begin to look like people who live inside a chimney. You do not smell better. The smell inside becomes layered beyond language. There's the steady base of dung, warm and immediate. There's urine, sharp and stinging, rising into your nose until your eyes water. There's wet fur, which has its own sad, sour funk. There's mold beginning to bloom in corners where damp straw sits too long, and it smells like bread that hates you. And through it all, the pitch keeps sweating a tarry bitterness, like the ark is reminding you it was built from trees and terror. You shovel constantly. You become intimately familiar with the consistency of every creature's waste, which is not knowledge anyone asked for. Herbivore piles are big and earnest, like they're proud of their work. Carnivore mess is smaller, but smells like a threat. Bird droppings are everywhere, because birds believe gravity is a suggestion and the whole world is their bathroom. You scrape perches, you wipe beams, you tie cloths over your mouth and discover it helps for about 12 seconds. Your wife starts making vinegar cloths again, and now vinegar becomes your main flavor for life. Bread tastes like vinegar. Your hands smell like vinegar and failure. Your youngest daughter-in-law rubs her temples and says, "If I ever smell vinegar again after this, I will scream." Ham, from the corner, mutters, "Join the line." Days blur. You keep track anyway because you have to. Someone has to be the person who knows what day it is, even if day means the roof has been screaming for weeks. On the 40th day, you wake expecting something. Silence. A pause. A dramatic moment. The rain does stop, but it doesn't stop like a curtain dropping. It thins, it softens, it tapers off like a tired animal finally giving up. Drip becomes patter. Patter becomes occasional taps. Then you realize you can hear other things again. Water sloshing, the low groan of the ark settling, the restless shifting of animals without the constant roof drum over it. It should feel like relief. It feels like waiting in a room after a fight, when nobody knows what to say, because the water is still there. The water, unfortunately, is thriving. You can't see outside, but you can feel how high you are by how the ark moves. Wind comes now, pushing at your walls in long, steady presses. The ark drifts, it rolls, it yaws with the patience of a giant beast turning in sleep. Some days the movement is gentle enough that you almost forget you're on water. Other days a wave catches you wrong, and the whole ark lurches, and every animal makes its opinion known at once. A donkey brays, a horse screams, a goat bleats like it's being betrayed. Birds explode into flapping chaos overhead. The lions lift their heads irritated, and you feel every hair on your body stand up. You move fast during those moments. You check gates. You wedge extra boards. You calm the panicked ones with low voices that don't sound like you. You're learning how to be the caretaker of a floating zoo, which was not a career option you considered. One night, you wake to a new sound, Not rain, not wind. A muffled, distant boom. It rolls through the ark like thunder heard through water. The animals go still, listening. You stand in the aisle, lamp held up, and you realize it might be trees breaking somewhere beneath you, or houses, or the last parts of the world you knew, coming apart and sinking quietly out of reach. Your wife stands behind you, and her hand rests between your shoulder blades for a long moment. She doesn't say anything. You don't either. The days become a strange loop. Feed, water, clean. You ration supplies carefully, because you brought what you could carry, and you did not bring an extra year's worth of everything, because you are not a magician. Grain becomes precious. Dried fruit becomes treasure. Salt becomes a bargaining chip, even though there's no one to bargain with. You watch animals eat and feel a weird, bitter envy. They don't know. They don't remember the screaming outside. They don't picture faces pressed against wood. They just chew. They just live. Sometimes you catch yourself talking to them like they're neighbors. "All right," you mutter at a pair of stubborn oxen. "I see you. Yes, you are large. We all agree." The oxen blink slowly and continue being oxen, unmoved by your commentary. Your sons start telling the same stories over and over, the way people do when they don't have new scenery. Japheth retells the time a camel spit in Ham's face. Ham pretends to be angry, but you hear him laugh in the dark. Shem's wife hums sometimes while she scrapes straw, soft and steady, like she's trying to anchor herself with sound. Your wife keeps everyone moving. When someone sits too long, she hands them a bucket. When someone stares too long into the dimness, she points at a trough that needs refilling. She is not unkind. She is simply refusing to let despair become a hobby, around what you count as the 100th day. You realize the ark has become its own universe. You don't talk about outside much, because outside is just water and sky and the memory of screams. Your children's faces look older in lamplight. Everyone's hair is greasier. Beards are wilder. Your hands have permanent cracks in them from wet and work. Your knuckles sting. Even your feet feel different, constantly damp, constantly braced against movement. The animals have changed too. They're calmer now in a way that's almost eerie, not tame, just settled into the floating routine, like they've accepted the ark as the only world that matters. The wolves watch you with bright eyes when you pass. The sheep keep chewing. The lions sleep more, heavy and regal, saving their strength for a world that hasn't come back yet. You start to understand why people go mad at sea. There's nowhere for your mind to walk. You can't go for a stroll to clear your head. You can't step outside and breathe air that isn't full of ammonia and warm bodies. Your view is a strip of grey light through the high window, and whatever your lamp can claw out of the darkness. So your mind circles. It circles the same thoughts until they feel like ropes tightening. You start noticing tiny things with desperate intensity. A new patch of mold, a cracked jar, a loose knot. One evening, Ham snaps at Japheth over a spilled bucket. "It's water," Japheth says, voice tired. "It's not just water," Ham spits back. "It's our water." Your wife steps between them like a wall. "You want to fight," she says quietly. "Fight the pigs. They're winning." Ham stares at her, chest heaving. Japheth looks away. Somewhere behind you, a pig grunts in smug agreement. After 150 days, because yes, you keep counting, because counting is control, the movement changes again. Not immediately, not dramatically, but the ark begins to feel less like it's being carried and more like it's drifting with purpose. The roll grows gentler. The slap of water against the sides becomes quieter. The wind shifts and steadies. One morning you wake and the ark doesn't sway the way it usually does. It feels heavy, not sinking, not failing, just weighted, as if something beneath you is closer than it was. You stand in the aisle, barefoot on planks slick with damp, and you hold your breath. The ark gives a long, slow shudder. A deep scrape vibrates up through the wood, like a giant hand dragging a nail along stone. The animals react instantly. Birds flutter, hooves stomp. Something big, maybe the elephants, maybe some other enormous creature you try not to think about too much, lets out a low, unsettled sound. Ham grabs a post. What was that? Another scrape answers him, and the ark tilts, subtle but undeniable. Your stomach flips. For a heartbeat, you're sure you're breaking apart, that this is it, that you've survived drowning only to be smashed on some unseen thing beneath the waves. But the ark doesn't split. It settles. It settles like a tired person lowering themselves onto a bench after a long walk. You look at your sons, and in the dimness their faces shine with the same terrified hope. "We've stopped," Japheth whispers. Your wife's hand goes to her mouth again, that old gesture returning like muscle memory. Stopped doesn't mean safe. Stop doesn't mean done. Stop just means you're not being shoved around anymore. Still, the quiet after constant motion feels unreal. That night, you sleep deeper than you have in months, and when you wake, you realize something embarrassing. The silence is so strange you miss the rocking. Your body had learned it. It had become the rhythm of your existence. Now the ark sits, and your bones don't know what to do with stillness. Time crawls after. That. Water keeps draining away, slowly, stubbornly, like the world is reluctant to show its face again. You watch the light through the window strip change. You start seeing actual color sometimes, not just gray. You smell things that aren't only inside ark stink. A faint sharpness that could be fresh air drifting down through the high opening. It lasts seconds, but it's enough to make your eyes sting with longing. Your wife catches you standing under the window one day, just breathing like a starving man. She doesn't tease you. She just stands there too. One morning, you decide you can't take not knowing anymore. You climb up, careful, hand over hand, a long beam slick with humidity. Your shoulders ache, your palms sting. You reach the upper opening where the strip of window runs along the top, and you push your face toward it. Cold air hits your skin like a slap, not freezing, just clean. It smells like wet stone and endless water, but it's still cleaner than your floating barn chimney situation. So you take it like a feast. Outside is an ocean where the world used to be. Water stretches to the horizon, dull and rippled, reflecting a sky that looks scrubbed raw. No trees, no rooftops, no smoke, just water, and far off, shapes that might be peaks breaking the surface like knuckles. You swallow, throat tight. Behind you, Shem climbs up, then Japheth, then Ham. All of you taking turns staring at the new emptiness. Ham squints. "So, we're on a mountain." "Or what used to be one," Japheth mutters. Your wife's voice comes up from below, sharp with practical fear. "Don't fall." Because yes, you've survived the end of everything, and you can still die by slipping off a wet beam. Days pass. The water continues to lower, and eventually the peaks become clearer. You mark time by it. Another finger of rock appears, another ridge, another line that looks like a place something could someday grow. Hope shows up in little rude bursts. It never arrives politely. It just elbows its way into your chest and makes you ache. And then it leaves again when nothing changes for a week. One day, you can't stand it anymore. You decide to send a bird. You choose the raven first, because the raven looks like it knows how to handle disaster. Black feathers, sharp eyes, attitude like it could survive anything out of spite. You catch it carefully, hand steady, ignoring the way it pecks your fingers like you're personally offensive. Your sons gather behind you at the opening. Your wife stands farther back, arms folded tight, like she doesn't want to lean too close to hope. You lift the raven into the light. The bird's body is warm, heart hammering beneath your fingers. It smells like feathers and grit and freedom. You open your hands. The raven launches out into the grey air and becomes a dark slash against the sky. It circles once, twice, then flies off low over the water, heading toward whatever scraps the world is offering. You wait. Minutes pass. The raven doesn't come back. Ham whispers, "Is that good?" You stare out at the water, throat dry. "It means it found somewhere to land," you say slowly. Japheth's face tightens. "Or it found something to eat." No one answers that. Because yes, there are things to eat now. You climb down and go back to work, because there is always work, and because if you stop moving, your mind will sprint straight into the screaming silence again. More days pass. The raven remains gone, a black thought flying somewhere beyond your reach. You decide to send the dove next. The dove is smaller, gentler, ridiculous in the face of what you've survived. It feels like sending a soft prayer into a hard world. You take it carefully, palms cupped around its warm, trembling body. It smells clean compared to everything else, like dust and grain. Your wife watches from the aisle, eyes fixed on the bird. You bring the dove up to the opening and feel the cool wind ruffle its feathers. You release it. It flutters out white against grey, wings beating fast. It circles, uncertain, like it's shocked the world is this empty. It flies out over the water. You wait. The minutes stretch until your jaw aches from clenching it. Then you see it. A small pale shape returning, wings tired, circling lower. It flaps toward you like it's been arguing with the wind. The dove lands on the edge of the opening and stumbles forward into your hands like it's collapsing into you. You pull it in, heart thudding. It has nothing. No twig, no leaf, no sign. Just exhaustion and wet feet. Your wife exhales, a long sound that carries too many feelings to sort. "We wait," she says quietly. So you wait. A week inside the ark is not a week of restful patience. It's a week of shoveling and feeding and trying not to snap at the sound of chewing. The animals are restless again now that the ark is still. They pace in their pens. They shift. They make noises that sound like complaints about customer service. The lions yawn and stare at you like this delay is your personal fault. The goats, still committed to chaos, start testing their gaits again with their hard little skulls. You wedge boards tighter. You tie knots until your fingers cramp. You tell a goat, "You are not leaving early. No, don't even look at me like that." The goat bleats and headbutts the gate anyway. Your wife walks by and says, "It takes after you." You pretend you didn't hear her. 7 days pass and you send the dove again. This time the air feels different when you climb up. It smells faintly, green, not fully, not like a meadow. Just like the idea of a plant has been reintroduced to the world. You release the dove. It flies farther this time, more confident, beating out over the lowering water toward the dark shapes of land. You wait again, hands cold on the beam, eyes burning from staring. The return is slower, but it comes. A pale flutter against the sky, circling in, landing. The dove steps into your hands, and there, clutched delicately in its beak, is a leaf, an olive leaf, small and torn, but unmistakably real. For a moment, you can't speak. The leaf looks absurd in your hand, like a tiny piece of normal life smuggled into a nightmare. Ham makes a strangled sound that might be laughter. Japheth wipes his face with his sleeve, rough and fast, pretending it's sweat. Shem's eyes close, and his shoulders drop like he's been holding himself upright by sheer will for a year. You climb down with the leaf, and your wife meets you halfway. You hold it out to her. She takes it with both hands like it's fragile treasure, and her fingers tremble around it. "It's alive," she whispers. You nod, because your throat is too tight to do anything else. Down below, the animals keep eating and shifting and pooping, blissfully unaware that a leaf just became the most important object on Earth. Hope returns, and stays a little longer this time. Not because everything is fixed, not because the ark suddenly smells like flowers. It still smells like a sealed barn full of breathing, sweating bodies and 1,000 daily messes. But now you know there are trees again. There is land that can hold a bird. There is a world trying to grow back. You wait another 7 days, and the waiting is different now. Still hard, still cramped, still damp. But it has an edge of anticipation that keeps you from sinking. When the week passes, you send the dove one more time. You hold it close for a second before you release it, feeling its warm heartbeat against your fingers. Your wife watches it like she's watching a child walk away. You open your hands. The dove flies out into the pale air, wings bright against the sky, and it heads toward the dark ridges of exposed land. You watch until it's a speck. You wait. Minutes stretch, then hours. You keep glancing up between chores, between scraping straw and refilling troughs, your mind splitting itself in half, half caretaker, half watcher. The dove does not return. Night comes, and the dove does not return. In the quiet, you realize what that means. It found a place better than this, a branch, a ledge, a tree that can hold its small body and let it sleep without pitch fumes and lion breath and goat screaming. Japheth leans against a post and lets out a slow breath. "It's out," he murmurs. Ham nods, eyes shining in the lamplight. "We're next." You don't rush to the door. You've learned what rushing does. You've learned that salvation is not a sprint. It's endurance, day after day, bucket after bucket, breath after breath. So you keep doing the work. You keep the animals alive. You keep your family moving. You keep watching the light through the window strip grow brighter as the air outside clears. The ark sits firm on its resting place, and the world outside slowly, stubbornly returns to having edges again. Land rises, water drains, and you live inside this wooden box for weeks more, smelling the same smells, hearing the same hooves and wings and low animal murmurs. But now, underneath it all, there's a new sound. Not rain, not screaming. A quiet kind of waiting that feels like the world holding still before it opens its eyes again. And then, finally, the door opens. But what's left? It doesn't swing wide like a hero moment. It sticks. Of course it sticks. The door has been sealed with pitch, swollen with damp, and pressed by a year of weather that tried to erase the entire planet. You put your shoulder into it, and the wood answers with a long, offended groan. Shem wedges his fingers into a crack. Japheth leans in. Ham mutters something that sounds like a prayer and a complaint at the same time. The door shudders, coughs, and gives up. Light pours in like it's been waiting outside the whole time, tapping its foot. Air hits your face, and it's so clean you almost don't trust it. It smells like wet stone, cold mud, and emptiness. No ammonia, No pitch sweat. No warm animal breath trapped in boards. Your lungs drink it like a starving man finding water. You blink hard because your eyes have gotten used to lamplight and gloom. The sun looks rude. The sky looks too big. And the silence isn't peaceful. It's vacant. You step forward, and your foot finds mud that used to be a mountain. It sucks at your heel like the earth is trying to keep you. Your other foot lands and slides a little, because everything is slick. There's no grass to catch you, no roots, no friendly ground, just mud and gravel and the ugly bones of rock. Behind you, the ark exhales as the animals shift, sensing open space. The sound that spills out is immediate and chaotic. Hooves stamp, wings rattle. A goat bleats like it's filing an official complaint. Your wife steps up beside you, squinting into the light, and for a moment she just stands there. Her hair is a mess, her clothes smell like a year in a barn, and her face looks older. Still, she lifts her chin as if she's daring the new world to try her. "Well," she says, voice dry, "it's spacious." You look out over the landscape, and you realize spacious is one word for it. Dead is another. The water has pulled back, but it left a smear of wreckage, bits of wood, tangled reeds, a cracked clay jar that somehow survived the end of everything, only to die here on a slope. There are shapes in the mud you do not stare at for long. You swallow hard and turn back to the ark, because the ark is still full of life, and life is loud. You don't just fling the gates open and shout, "All right, everybody, go reinvent nature." You move carefully, because you've spent a year learning what happens when living creatures panic in tight spaces. You start with the birds. You unlatch the cages, hands trembling, and the first rush of wings is like a storm made of feathers. They explode into the air, circling above you, crying out as if the sky belongs to them again. Maybe it does. Some land on the ark's roof, blinking and looking confused, like they expected trees to be waiting. Others fly out over the mud anyway, because a bird will take freedom even if it's inconvenient. Next, you open the smaller pens. Rabbits bolt, immediately regretting it when they hit mud and have to do that frantic hopping thing where each leap is a decision. A pair of foxes slip out like shadows, tails low, eyes scanning the empty world for a place to disappear. The sheep come out in a clump, because sheep have never had an original thought in their lives. They bunch up on the slope, bleating softly, staring at you as if you personally misplaced the pasture. "You're welcome," Ham mutters, and one sheep bleats back like it's unconvinced. The larger animals take longer. The cattle step down with that slow, careful weight, hooves sinking, heads lifting into the air like they can smell what's missing. The horses snort and toss their heads, muscles twitching, not sure if this is freedom or a trap. The elephants come out last, and when they do, the ground seems to remember what heavy means. They move with a deep, rumbling patience, trunks tasting the air. Your whole body aches watching them because you carried water and shoveled waste for a year, and they look like they could carry the ark if they felt like it. The predators don't sprint away like nightmares escaping. They walk. The lions pad down the ramp with that silent royal confidence, eyes half-lidded, as if the apocalypse was a minor inconvenience and they expect an apology. The wolves pause at the bottom, looking back at you. Not friendly, not grateful, just aware. Then they turn and move off, melting into the grey-brown world. You watch predator and prey separate, not with a dramatic chase, but with a quiet understanding returning to its place. The truce is over. The miracle, for now, has done its job. Eventually, the ark is empty. No more hooves on planks, no more wing beats in the rafters, No more animal heat trapped in wood. The sound fades into distance. You stand there with your family, 8 people, on a scraped clean world, and it hits you like a physical weight. There are no neighbors, no smoke columns, no shouting from a market, no distant barking dogs. No one is laughing at you anymore. No one is laughing, period. Japheth walks a few paces down the slope and crouches. He picks up a handful of mud and lets it ooze through his fingers. It's just dirt, he says, like he expected something else. Ham huffs out a breath. It's the fanciest dirt in existence, brand new. Your wife gives him a look, because even now, even here, she's not letting him turn grief into a joke too big to hold. Ham shuts his mouth. Shem's wife stands close to Shem, hand in his sleeve, eyes moving over the emptiness. Your other daughters-in-law hover near your wife like ducklings near the only adult who seems built for survival. You turn back toward the ark. It sits there on the mountain like a strange wooden scar. You built it board by board, year by year, pitch by pitch. It carried you. It stank. It creaked. It kept your family alive when the whole world turned into water. Now it's just there. A huge, awkward box on mud. And your hands, without anyone telling you, start moving. You gather stones. Not because you're suddenly in the mood for landscaping, because you need to do something with all that pressure inside your ribs. You pick stones out of the mud, slippery and cold, and stack them. Your fingers are clumsy. Your nails are stained with old soot and old work. The stones wobble. You reposition them. You build up a rough altar right there on the raw earth. It's uneven. It's not elegant. It's honest. Your sons help without being asked, hauling rocks that make their shoulders strain. Japheth's tunic is still the ark tunic, patched and stiff with old salt and old life. He drops a stone, and it thuds into place. No one speaks much. The wind speaks for you, cold and clean, sweeping over the mountain like it's trying to wipe away memory. When the altar is ready, you go to the animals you brought for this, the clean ones, the ones you counted carefully while the world drowned. Your stomach twists because you spent a year keeping everything alive, and now you are about to kill something on purpose. But you do it anyway, because this is how you answer a mercy that big. You work with practiced hands, because sacrifice isn't new to you. You prepare the offering, and the smell of blood is sharp in the clean air. It reminds you, in a way nothing else can, that life is fragile, that everything breathes on borrowed time. Your wife stands nearby, face set, hands clasped. She doesn't flinch, but her eyes shine a little. You lay the pieces on the stones. You strike fire. The flame takes slow at first, licking at the offering like it's deciding whether it wants the job. Then it catches properly, and smoke rises, dark at the base, thinning as it climbs. The smell rolls out across the mountain. Not the ark smell, not manure and damp straw. This is the heavy, unmistakable scent of meat and fat-meeting flame, rich and thick, curling into your nose until your mouth waters and your throat tightens at the same time. Your stomach is hungry because of course it is. Your heart is also hungry. You watch the smoke rise into the bright open sky, and for the first time in a year, you feel small in a way that isn't claustrophobia. It's awe. It's relief so deep it hurts. You stand there while the fire eats and the wind tugs at your hair and clothes. And then God speaks, not like thunder shaking the boards, not like rain screaming on a roof. This is steady. This is the voice that made you build the impossible, and now it fills the clean air above the altar. You feel it more than you hear it, like the world itself is listening. The promise comes down on you like a cloak. Never again like that. Never again will the ground be cursed the same way. Never again will all flesh be cut off by a flood. You don't fall over sobbing in some neat theatrical way. You just stand there and your knees go weak, and you realize you've been braced for impact for so long, you forgot what it feels like to unclench. Your wife makes a sound beside you, half breath, half laugh, half something she refuses to name. Shem lets his head bow, shoulders shaking once. Ham stares straight ahead, eyes wide, like he's afraid the promise will evaporate if he blinks. And God keeps speaking, calm and firm, like setting beams into a foundation. You will fill the earth again. Life will return to its ordinary cycles. Seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night. Those words land in you like weights in the best way. Not because they're poetic, because they're normal. Normal means the world is going to keep going. Normal means you can plant something and reasonably expect it to come back up. Normal means you can lie down at night without wondering if the sky will open up and unmake everything. There are instructions too, because a second, chance still needs boundaries. You're told to be fruitful, to multiply, to spread out, not to huddle on one mountain like frightened mice. You're told the animals will fear you now. You glance down the slope where the wolves disappeared, and you think, yes, that checks out. You're told you can eat meat now, not just plants. Ham immediately looks like he's imagining a roasted leg of something, and your wife's elbow finds his ribs without even looking. But there's a line drawn in the same breath. No blood. Life is in the blood, and you don't treat life like it's nothing. You nod slowly because you've watched life vanish on a scale you never want to see again. Then comes a harder boundary, spoken like a stone set into the ground. Human life matters. If someone spills blood, if someone murders, there will be an accounting. Your stomach turns because you remember the world before, the casual violence, the way cruelty became entertainment. You remember a market where a man's pain was a joke. You remember children learning to laugh at it. This new world is not being built for that. Your family stands around the altar, fire crackling, smoke thinning as the offering burns down. Your daughters-in-law cling to each other, eyes fixed on the flames like they're watching the future decide what it's going to be. And then the sky changes. It's subtle at first, the way weather always is until it isn't. Clouds drift in, soft grey smears across the blue. A quick rain passes over the mountain, light, clean, nothing like the fury you survived. It patters on stone. It dampens ash. It doesn't roar. It doesn't scream. It just falls like rain is supposed to. When it stops, the sunlight breaks through, and the air turns bright and sharp. You lift your face automatically, because after a year of darkness and drizzle and the memory of water, your eyes are trained to watch the sky like it's a living thing. That's when you see it. Color arcs across the clouds, a bow stretched from one end of the sky to the other, bright enough to look unreal. Red, orange, yellow, colors you forgot existed because everything has been grey-brown for so long. It hangs there, quiet and impossible. Your family stares. Ham's mouth opens slightly, because even Ham can't argue with this. Japheth lets out a low breath. What is that? You don't have a word for it yet, not like people will later. You just know it's a sign. A marker in the sky that says, I remember, not I remember so I can punish. I remember so I won't do that again. You feel the weirdest mix of feelings in your chest. Relief, so strong it makes you dizzy. Grief, because the world is still gone. Fear, because you're starting over with nothing but 8 people and a promise. And under all of it, something steady. A sense that the one who made everything is not done with it. Not done with you. The rainbow fades slowly as the clouds move on, and the mountain returns to being mud and rock and ash. The altar smoulders down to coals. Your family stands there in the aftermath, and now there's the practical question nobody wants to ask out loud. Where do you even begin? You begin with the same thing you began with inside the ark: work. You find a place where the slope eases, where you can set your feet without sliding. You scrape away debris. You look for water that isn't stagnant. You build rough shelters, because sleeping under open sky sounds romantic until the wind gets cold, and you realize you own exactly one damp tunic. You scavenge what you can from the ark, because that wood is precious now. The ark becomes your storage shed, your tool house, your reminder, your monument to insanity. Days pass, and the world starts to show the first tiny signs of fighting its way back. A stubborn green shoot pushes up through mud near a rock, like life itself is too angry to stay dead. Birds return in twos and threes, landing where they can, singing tentative songs like they're checking if the world is safe yet. Insects appear, because of course they do. You see a beetle crawling over a damp log, and you have the strange urge to hug it and also fling it into the sun. Look, Ham says one morning, pointing. A line of ants is marching with grim purpose across a patch of dirt, hauling crumbs that must have come from somewhere. Your wife squints. They survived. Ham nods slowly. They always do. You start planting, not because you have a beautiful garden plan, because you need food and you need something that looks like a future. Seeds go into the ground. Your fingers press them down, cover them, pat the soil like it's a child's head. The earth is still raw and scarred, but it accepts them. You find yourself watching the sky a lot. Every cloud makes your muscles tighten for a heartbeat before you remember the promise. Every rain makes you count the hours. Even when it's gentle, your wife catches you staring up once, jaw clenched. She comes to stand beside you, close enough that her shoulder touches yours. It's rain, she says, quiet but firm. You swallow. I know. She nods once. We know. And she stays until the clouds drift off, as if her presence can hold you in place when your mind wants to run. Time moves in a way it couldn't inside the ark. Inside, everything was chores and dim light and endless sameness. Outside, the sun travels across the sky, and you can feel the day warming, then cooling. You can smell the difference between morning mud and afternoon mud. That is not a sentence you expected to be grateful for, but here you are. Seasons begin their slow return. The heat comes, drying the ground, cracking mud into plates. The wind picks up dust. You cough and taste earth, and it's annoying and wonderful. Cold nights follow, and you pull rough blankets close, listening to distant animal calls in the dark. Not the zoo noises of captivity, wild sounds, the world breathing again. And because you are human, because you are still the same species that managed to ruin an entire world the first time, you also managed to bring mess into the fresh start. It doesn't take long. One day, you decide you want something that feels like joy, something that isn't survival gruel and barley cakes that could double as roofing tiles. You plant a vineyard. It feels almost rebellious, like you're daring the earth to be pleasant. Vines take time. They wind and climb and demand patience. You give it. You watch those green tendrils creep along supports you built from salvaged wood. You prune, you tie, you water. Your sons tease you for it. Japheth calls it your midlife crisis garden. Ham asks if you're going to start charging admission. Your wife, to your surprise, seems quietly pleased. She runs her fingers over leaves sometimes, like touching something soft is a gift. Eventually, the vineyard gives you fruit, grapes, swollen and sweet, dark with promise. You harvest them, sticky juice running down your wrists. You press them because you remember how. You collect the liquid, and it sits, it bubbles, it changes. And one evening, when the day has been long, and your back has been screaming and the world has felt heavy again, you drink. At first, it's just relief, warmth in your belly, a loosening in your shoulders, a laugh that comes easier. You drink more, because of course you do. You are a man who carried the weight of the world's ending, and now you have a jar of fermented forgetting. You drink until your thoughts blur around the edges. You drink until you are not thinking about fists on the ark door. You drink until you are not hearing the rain. You drink until you are, tragically, just a man in a tent, with too much wine and not enough sense. The next part is not noble. The next part is not the clean, triumphant ending people want after a flood story. You end up uncovered in your tent, sprawled out in sleep, vulnerable and shamefully human. The new world isn't paradise. It's the same humanity, just with more mud. Ham comes in and sees you like that. He sees his father, Noah, the builder, the survivor, the man who heard God, lying there exposed and helpless, not as a hero, but as a foolish old man who drank too much. What Ham does with that moment, it's messy. He doesn't quietly fix it. He doesn't turn away. He goes out and tells his brothers. There's a sharp edge to it, a hint of delight, as if he's been waiting for proof that even you can fall. Shem and Japheth react differently. They don't storm in to gawk. They don't join the joke. They take a garment, one cloak between them, and they hold it up like a curtain. They walk backward into the tent, shoulders tight, eyes averted, doing the awkward shuffle of men trying to cover their father without seeing what they're covering. It is, frankly, one of the strangest acts of respect you've ever not witnessed. They lay the garment over you, careful and quiet. They leave without a word. When you wake, your mouth tastes like old grapes and regret. Your head throbs, because wine is generous while you're drinking and vindictive afterward. You sit up slowly and realize you've been covered. You piece together what happened from the way your sons won't quite meet your eyes, and from the way Ham's posture has that smug looseness of someone who thinks he's won something. The shame hits you first, hot, embarrassing, immediate. You were given a second chance, and you celebrated it by getting drunk and collapsing like an idiot. Then the anger comes. Not clean anger, not righteous anger. The kind that rises when you feel exposed twice, once by your own foolishness, and again by someone who couldn't resist pointing at it. You speak, and your words fall heavy in the camp. You don't curse Ham directly. You curse Canaan, Ham's son. The sentence hangs there, bitter and strange, like smoke that won't blow away. Ham's face changes, smugness dropping into something tighter. Shem and Japheth stand silent, cloak still in their hands like they're holding the last shred of dignity in the family. Your wife looks at you with an expression you can't read. Not approval, not disgust. Something like tired sorrow, as if she's watching humanity reboot itself and immediately trip over the same old wires. Afterward, the camp feels different. The air is still clean, the sky is still wide, but there's a crack in the fresh start now, running right through your family. You go back to work, because that's what you know how to do. The vineyard still grows, indifferent to your shame. The fields still need tending. The animals still move through the distance, wild and wary. One evening, after a day of labor, you sit on a rock and watch the sun slide down behind the ridges. The light turns the mud a soft gold for a moment, almost forgiving. Ham walks farther off than the others, alone, shoulders tense. Shem and Japheth talk quietly near the shelters, their voices low. Your daughters-in-law move around your wife like she's the center of the camp, and she lets them, because she knows what holding people together costs. You look up at the sky, half expecting clouds, half expecting color. Sometimes there is a rainbow after a passing rain. Sometimes there isn't. Either way, the seasons keep moving. Day follows night. The world keeps going. And you sit there in the new quiet, feeling the strange truth of it. You were saved. You were promised something steady. You were given a clean beginning. And you are still you. Hands calloused, heart complicated, capable of building an ark and also capable of drinking too much wine. The second chance is real. So is the mess you brought with you onto the mud. So after all of that, the years of building, the months of floating, the strange new beginning, what does it do to you when it's over? Because you don't walk out of a year-long, floating petting zoo apocalypse and just go, anyway, and move on with your life. Your clothes still smell like old pitch and panic. Your hands still remember splinters. Your brain still flinches at rain. What you just lived through isn't something you file away as a wild story. It feels like watching a world rot until it collapses under its own weight. That first part matters because it wasn't, oops, people made a few mistakes. It was violence baked into breakfast. It was cruelty becoming normal entertainment. It was the ground itself feeling like it had absorbed too much blood, too many screams, too many broken bodies. The flood isn't treated like a divine temper tantrum. It lands like grief, like the kind of grief that looks at something beloved and says, "This is not what I made you for." And that's why the cleansing is so extreme. It's not about God being picky. It's about a world so infected with violence that it's spreading into everything, families, streets, even the way creatures behave. When corruption becomes the air you breathe, you don't fix it with a polite memo and a fresh coat of paint. You scrub. Hard. And the story makes you sit in how awful that is. The rain doesn't come with a soundtrack and tasteful timing. It comes with screaming that eventually stops. It comes with the sick quiet afterward. It comes with the realization that judgment isn't clean. It's a reset that hurts. And right in the middle of all that, you run into Noah. Not Noah, the stained glass grandpa with perfect hair. Noah, the exhausted man with blistered palms, and a family that has to live next to the world's largest construction project for decades. Noah, the guy getting heckled by neighbors, while he's hauling beams the size of regret. And Noah's faithfulness isn't presented like a personality trait he was born with. It's shown like a daily decision. You get up, you cut wood, you measure, you smear pitch until you smell like a tar pit with opinions. You keep going while nobody claps. You keep going while everybody laughs. That's the point. Obedience doesn't come with a neat explanation here. You don't get a diagram of the future. You don't get a 5-year plan. You get an instruction that makes you look ridiculous. And you have to decide what kind of person you're going to be while you're still being mocked. Noah's faithfulness is practical. It's built out of repeated, unglamorous choices, showing up, doing the work, taking the next step, even when the world around you insists you're wasting your life. And honestly, that's one of the kindest parts of the story, because it admits what faith usually feels like. It feels like work, then come the animals, and that whole surreal parade into the ark. Predators strolling beside prey like they signed a non-aggression pact for exactly one boat ride. It's strange on purpose, because it shows you something about God's intention. Even in judgment, there's preservation. Even in cleansing, there's a fierce refusal to throw creation away. The ark isn't just a bunker for one family. It's a carried-along seed of the world. It lands on you like a blunt fact. This isn't the end. And the moment that really seals it is the door. God closes it. That detail sits there like a stone in your stomach, because it means Noah isn't the one controlling who gets in or out. Noah builds. Noah obeys. Noah herds panicking creatures and tries not to get kicked to death by a frightened donkey. But the final boundary, mercy and judgment, rescue and loss, that belongs to God. It's sobering. It's also, in a strange way, a relief, because it means the weight of saving the world was never on Noah's shoulders in the first place. Inside the ark, you learn another lesson the hard way. Survival is not glamorous. It's feeding schedules, waste piles, and darkness that never fully lifts. It's living in a box that creaks like it's complaining. It's waiting through days that all smell the same. Ammonia, damp straw, and that particular funk that happens when too many living things share too little air. The flood doesn't just wipe out the world. It also strips away the illusion that humans are in control. You can't argue with the sky when it opens. You can't negotiate with water when it climbs. You can't hustle your way out of a planet turning into an ocean. All you can do is endure. And endurance in this story becomes its own kind of faithfulness. Not flashy, not heroic, just steady. You keep going. You keep doing what needs doing. You keep life alive. When the waters finally pull back, the story refuses to give you a fairy tale landing. The door sticks. The ground is mud and wreckage. The silence is vacant, not peaceful. And the first thing Noah does isn't build a palace or claim a throne. He builds an altar. Because after that kind of rescue, you don't start with self-congratulation. You start with gratitude, trembling hands, and smoke rising into clean air. And that's where the covenant arrives. This is one of the biggest reasons the flood story ends up being about commitment, not destruction. God doesn't just say, "All right, we're done here." God promises restraint, never again like that. The world is allowed to keep its ordinary rhythms, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, day and night. That promise sounds simple until you remember you've just lived through a year where ordinary got drowned. The covenant is God tying himself to creation's future. Not because humans suddenly became trustworthy. You already know they didn't. You've got Noah, fresh off surviving the end of everything, planting a vineyard and getting so drunk he ends up uncovered in his tent, like a cautionary tale nobody asked for. The story includes that on purpose. It's saying, even after a reset, the human heart still carries its mess. Sin doesn't wash out with floodwater. Shame doesn't dissolve in rain. Family dysfunction can survive the apocalypse and immediately start redecorating. And still, God commits. That's what the rainbow is doing in the middle of all this muddy realism. It's not a cute decoration for children's nurseries. It's a weapon-shaped sign hung up in the sky, like a war bow set aside. It's God saying, "I will remember," and not in the scary way humans remember. Not, "I remember and I'm keeping score." I remember and I am choosing mercy. The rainbow doesn't deny the darkness of what happened. It sits above it. It marks the storm as something that passes, not something that becomes the permanent state of the world. It's a promise with color in it, for people who will always tense up when clouds gather. And that's the deep heartbeat running under the whole journey. God's grief is real, God's judgment is real, and God's patience is real. You're left with a God who takes violence seriously, and somehow still doesn't walk away from what he made. You're left with a God who refuses to abandon what he made, even knowing exactly what humans are like. That's the resolution this story offers. The last thing you're left with isn't the flood. It's the promise after. A second chance with boundaries. A world allowed to continue with seasons and ordinary mornings. A sky that can darken with rain without becoming a death sentence. A humanity that is still complicated, still capable of both building arcs and making disasters intense. And over that whole messy continuation, the sign remains, appearing after storms, bright against clouds, steady in its meaning. Not, I won't care. I won't quit. And the story didn't end when the waters receded. It's still being told. A few seasons pass, and you learn something uncomfortable about surviving the end of everything. You still have to wake up and deal with weather. The first time dark clouds stack up again, your stomach tightens like someone grabbed it with a fist. The air goes metallic. The wind smells like wet stone and old leaves. Your hands pause over whatever you're doing, tying rope, stacking branches, trying to pretend you're normal. And your whole body waits for the sky to betray you. Rain begins, gentle at first. Not the angry, ceiling-caving roar you remember, just drops. Still, you flinch like the world has teeth. The people around you notice. They all notice. Because everyone's got a version of that flinch now, passed down like an heirloom nobody asked for. A child hears thunder and goes quiet. A grown man watches the horizon too long. A woman counts days of rain the way people count fevers. You don't even need to explain why. When you tell it later, your voice drops without you trying, because it still hurts to say out loud. You sit with your back against rough timber that you cut yourself, and the fire snaps, and smoke crawls into your clothes. Someone hands you bread that's still a little gritty with stone mill sand, and you chew slowly because your teeth are still doing their best. Your voice goes low without you meaning it to. You talk about the door. You talk about the sound the ark made at night, creaking like an old man complaining in his sleep. You talk about the smell inside, damp straw, animal heat, pitch, waste, and that sour fear sweat that comes out when you can't escape. The kids wrinkle their noses like you're being dramatic. You aren't. They ask about the animals, because of course they do. Kids love the zoo part, until you describe the zoo part honestly. They want lions and elephants. You give them lice and angry geese, and the non-stop wet slap of something unidentifiable hitting the deck. They laugh because they can. You let them, because the laughing is proof you're not still inside. After a while, the story spreads farther than your own little circle of smoke and bread. It rides in the mouths of travelers. It rides in the footsteps of people who can't stay put, because human beings are like that. A stranger shows up with a pack and a sunburn and the smell of road dust baked into his hair. He trades you a knife for grain and a little gossip for a place near the fire. When someone mentions the flood, his eyes change. He says quietly that his people tell something like that too. Not the same details, different names, different hills, different kinds of boats, sometimes not even boats, rafts, baskets, chests, things that float because they have to, but always the same ache underneath, water that rises, a family that survives, a world that starts again with hands shaking. You don't argue about it. You just sit there, watching the flames lick the air, and you feel that strange shiver of recognition, like hearing your own heartbeat echo back from far away. Later, you hear it again. You meet herders who live where the land looks like it's been cracked open by the sun. They talk about a time the sky turned against the earth, and everything became a single moving sheet. They have their own phrases for it, their own way of describing the fear. You meet fishermen on a coast that never stops smelling like salt and rotting seaweed. They swear their grandfathers told them the sea once swallowed the world's pride. Their hands never stop moving as they talk, tying knots, mending nets, doing the work that keeps you alive. You walk away from each telling with the same feeling, like you've been tapped on the shoulder by memory. It's not neat, it's not organized. It spreads the way real fear spreads, mouth to mouth, family to family, fire to fire. It's just people, everywhere, carrying this one heavy idea, that the world can be washed clean, and that someone chose not to let it end. Even the land keeps its own version of the story. You find places where the ground looks wrong, layers of dried muck and broken shells where shells shouldn't be, stones smoothed in ways that make no sense, valleys that look like they were scraped by a giant hand. You stand there with dirt under your nails, and you can almost smell that old flood water again. Not because it's still there, because your body remembers. And then there's the mountain. Someone points you toward it like they're pointing at a scar on the horizon. It rises cold and enormous, wearing clouds like a shawl. The air gets thinner as you approach, and every breath feels like it has to work for its place in your chest. By the time you're climbing, your calves burn. Your feet slip on scree that skitters away from you like it's annoyed you exist. The wind bites your ears and shoves at your clothes. You taste snowmelt and rock dust, and your lips crack because the mountain has no interest in your comfort. People come here anyway. You see them on the path, limping, panting, stubborn. Some carry offerings wrapped in cloth. Some carry nothing but hope, which is lighter but somehow harder to haul. A few carry pieces of wood they've been told are special, held tight like talismans. A man near you has hands stained with resin and dirt, as if he's been gripping the world too hard. He keeps glancing up through the fog, like he expects to see a hull sticking out of ice. You want to tell him the ark wasn't a relic, it was a mercy, but you don't ruin his climb. At a flatter place, where the wind calms for half a minute, you watch people press their palms to the stones. They close their eyes. They whisper names: Shem, Ham, Japheth. The names sound small against all that sky, but they keep being said anyway, passed from mouth to mouth, century to century, like the simplest rope you can hold onto in a storm. Some pilgrims cry. Some just stand there silent, staring into the white distance. Some are the practical kind. They poke at every dark shape in the snow, hoping it's wood. Their disappointment is sharp and familiar, like they've come here wanting proof that mercy happened. The mountain gives them cold air and aching knees. It doesn't give them a museum display. Still, they go back down with their faces changed, and they tell the story again with new details. The wind on that ridge, the silence, the feeling of being very small under a very big sky. The story keeps picking up fingerprints. Back at lower altitudes, life goes on in the only way it ever can. Slowly, messily, one meal at a time. You build homes with walls thin enough to hear every argument. You raise animals that step directly on your toes like it's their calling. You plant seeds that might sprout or might not, depending on whether the sky decides to be kind. And you keep telling your children not to wander too far. Not because of floodwater anymore, because the world is still the world. The ground gets green again, but it's not paradise green. It's weed green. It's thorn green. It's something is always trying to bite you green. You learn that the promise wasn't nothing bad will ever happen. The promise was simpler, steadier. The seasons will keep turning. The world won't be unmade in that way again. That steadiness becomes its own kind of shelter, because if you've lived through a sky that didn't stop pouring, you don't take ordinary weather for granted. You notice the small mercies. A morning that smells like dry dust instead of damp rot. A week of sun that warms your bones. A river that stays in its banks, minding its business. A harvest that comes in, even when you were half sure it wouldn't. And sometimes, after rain, the sky does that thing. At first, you only notice the light shifting, and then someone points. There, above the wet hills, over the steaming ground where puddles are turning into vapor, color arcs across the clouds. It's clean and bright, like the storm got tired and decided to decorate on its way out. Everyone looks, even the people who pretend they don't care. Children squint up at it, their hair still damp, and their faces go soft. Grown men who fought over livestock and land stare with their mouths slightly open, like they forgot how to be hard for a moment. Women lift babies higher, so the little ones can see, because you want them to grow up knowing what mercy looks like. You can almost feel the old fear trying to rise, the old flinch, but the colors hold, not as a warning, as a thought someone hung in the sky on purpose. You're not the only one who notices that this sign doesn't shout. It doesn't clang like a weapon. It doesn't demand anything from you in the moment. It just appears steady as a vow. And because humans are humans, the sign starts showing up in places it was never meant to be trapped. People scratch it into clay. They paint it onto walls. They stitch colored threads into cloth. They pass down little songs, because songs are easier to carry than speeches. A child hums while grinding grain, and the tune is older than her hands. A shepherd whistles it through his teeth, while watching clouds form over distant hills. The promise becomes part of the background noise of being alive. It doesn't stop people from being people, unfortunately. Families still split over stupid, aching things. Brothers still do harm to brothers. Someone always thinks they can take what isn't theirs. Somebody always finds a way to turn shame into a weapon. You watch it happen, and you feel that old heaviness again, the grief that started this whole story in the first place. But you also remember the ending, not the clean ending you wish you had, the ending you were given, a world that keeps going, a God who doesn't quit, and that matters, because you realize you're not listening to the flood story from a safe distance anymore. You are the continuation of it. Your lungs are full of the same air that came after the waters pulled back. Your hands do the same kind of work, planting, building, feeding, cleaning. Your heart is capable of the same terrible stuff, yes. It's also capable of obedience, of endurance, of choosing not to add to the violence, even when it would be easier. When you look at the line of people behind you, children and their children, and the way stories keep multiplying, you feel both the weight and the wonder of it. The world got a second chance, and it's being spent one ordinary day at a time. Somewhere, far away, someone else is telling a version of the flood. They're sitting by their own fire, smelling their own smoke, swatting their own insects. Their voice drops when they describe water climbing. Their listeners go quiet at the part where the world goes silent. They lean in at the part where life returns. They lift their eyes afterward as if expecting to see color, and often enough, they do. The sky still gathers storms. Rain still falls on roofs and fields and forgotten stones. Rivers still rise and argue with their banks. People still feel small under thunder. And after, the light still breaks through, and that arc still hangs there for a while, above mud, above new grass, above a world that keeps being remade in tiny ways. It doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't pretend you won't be afraid again. It just stays true. The mountain remains where it is, wrapped in cloud and cold, watching generations come and go. The valleys fill with voices, then empty, then fill again. The names keep being spoken, sometimes carefully, sometimes sloppily, but spoken. And you keep walking forward into the days you've been given, under a sky that remembers mercy, into a world that still turns through seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, and the story continues.